Tipp today, in association with Slattery's of Pecan, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. Slattery'sGarage.ie.
Good morning, welcome along to Tipp Today, 1800 938 007. That's our free phone number. It won't cost you if you'd like to make a call to us. And Leanne is producing today. If you're about to set out on the roads, a lot of floods, a lot of flooding on the roads, so do be careful if you're driving today. Coming up on the show this morning, a local father shares the struggles faced by carers across the county and across the country. The Carrick parking row continues on. We'll chat about that. Cyber security expert Matt O'Reilly will speak to us because he has concerns around the proposed new laws that increases the ability of the Gardaí to search messages and data stored on phones, computers and other digital devices. We'll speak to my good friend Muiris Walsh because he spent some time over the years in Minnesota, and of course Minnesota and Minneapolis in the spotlight for all of the wrong reasons over the last while. We have our legal slot, and we have memories of hedonism and debauchery in Cashel in 1969. Yeah, it was the Flacchiole of 1969. We'll speak to Tom Wood about that. So all of that and more on the way. You can text and WhatsApp 083 311 3311. You can email Tipp today at tippfm.com. Let's have a look at the front pages of some of your newspapers today. The Irish Daily Mail, and they're leading with the headline 47% opposed to Taoiseach meeting with Trump for St. Patrick's Day. And they go on to tell us that a clear majority of the public believe the Taoiseach should not visit the White House for St. Patrick's Day after the Greenland and Venezuela crisis. But I know that yesterday in the Indo, Fionn Sheehan wrote about this, and he said that's all very well and good, but the Taoiseach has to actually think about the long-term strategic interests of a country heavily dependent on our economic ties with the States, and which pre-exist the Trump administration and will be around for a lot longer afterwards. And it's a very good point, I think, before we lose the run of ourselves. The Irish Independent, their main story: government spending is rising faster in Ireland than in any other EU country. The Irish Fiscal Advisory Council will warn today. The Irish Times, and the lead story on the Times today, I know this is a story that concerns a lot of our listeners out there. Pat Leahy is writing on the front page, and he says the government is set to reject a recommendation from the Oireachtas Committee to have a formal legal review before Irish troops are sent abroad on peacekeeping missions once the triple lock is abolished. Cabinet is this morning expected to approve plans to push ahead with the abolition of the triple lock, which requires UN approval before Irish troops are sent abroad on peacekeeping missions. And also on the Times today, as US President Donald Trump sent his border czar, Tom Homan, to Minneapolis in an attempt to defuse the shock and outrage in the city after the killing of nurse Alex Pretty by US Immigration and Customs enforcement agents. Minnesota legal representatives are seeking a court ruling that the surge of immigration enforcement officers is an infringement on state sovereignty. The Irish Examiner, and the lead story on the Examiner, spontaneous cheering broke out in a packed Limerick Circuit criminal court when 4 serving Gardaí and a retired superintendent were found not guilty of attempting to pervert the course of justice. And also the Minnesota story on the front page of the Examiner today as well. So that's a look at the front pages. If you'd like to make comment on any of that, we'd be glad to hear from you. And once again, you can text and WhatsApp 083 311 3311. Now, thousands of family carers are being hit with tax bills going back years after Revenue got access to data on their payments. One man in his 80s, and we spoke about this last week, who cares for his sick wife, expects a bill of €6,000 in tax-back payments for the past 3 years. Well, Tipperary carer Michael Power took to social media to share his dismay, and he joins me now. Good morning to you, Michael.
Good morning, Fran.
And thanks very much indeed for coming on with us today. Now, you and your family cared for your son Alex around the clock up to his death last October at the age of 14, Michael. You're posing the question, how low can this government go where this is concerned?
That's right, Fran. I find it very wrong that they're chasing carers now for tax. Like, they're on a payment of less than €1.30 an hour.
Yeah. And
it's very hard to believe, like, giving them a payment of €1.20 an hour and then trying to tax them on top of that.
Yeah, the announcement was certainly extremely badly managed, and it was put in a way that frightened an awful lot of people, Michael. Is that what you're hearing?
It is, Fran. I know this has been there a while. They have been taxing carers the last couple of years, I think, but they're only chasing them now for the money.
Yeah. And, you know, Micheál Martin said he believed that 90% of carers would not be liable for tax in the first place. He said it was more of an information letter.
Well, Fran, I'm on a sport page for carers, and there's a lot of carers upset, and with this tax, they're very upset and worried about it. They're receiving a lot of carers are receiving letters, demanding money back.
And the allowance generally, I know in one person's, and I'm not sure if you can back this up for me, Michael, but the allowance amounts in one case that was documented on national radio to around €13,500 a year, while a worker on the very minimum wage for a 40-hour week would earn about €28,000 a year. Now, as you well know, and your family would well know, a child with profound special needs, it's 24 hours of care, isn't it?
It's 24/7 all year round. There's no breaks. There's no Saturday or Sundays off. So you have to be there full time. Like, so even when you're sleeping, you're still just been ready for that call the whole time.
Yeah.
It's 24/7. Like, there's no breaks. Like, so my partner got sick there. My wife, got sick there 6 years ago. She got diagnosed with breast cancer.
Yeah.
And even through all that, she didn't give up care. Like, so.
Yeah, that's Maggie, of course, who has spoken to us so often on the programme, yeah. But I mean, to do the sum on those figures I gave out there, it's really saying that a carer who does a 24-hour day job, 7 days a week, is worth half the amount of somebody on a minimum wage. I mean, where's the justification?
It's not even half, Fran. It's less than half.
It's less than half.
Yeah. So
I presume you've thought about this over the years. Why is it that carers are forgotten? Now, except when it comes to elections and you're all told how wonderful you are and you're patted on the head and you're angelic and all of these kind of things. But then it seems that you're forgotten about.
Yeah, because they don't have a proper understanding of carers. It's not until they walk that path in a carer that they'll understand it.
Yeah. And you said that the people behind this, they need to hang their head in shame, Michael.
That's right, yeah. Like, I think a lot of ministers and CDs, like, they're on a payment of over 200,000 in a year, like. You know, they don't see the struggles. When you have that type of money, like, you know, you have that help, like, with the money behind you, like.
So you're saying, how could they get their head around what it is to be?
Yeah, they really don't have a proper understanding of it. Like, they can throw money at it and then release that pain and the worries.
How hurtful is it, particularly if you're going through a particularly bad time as a carer, and then this kind of thing emerges, Michael? Is that very hurtful?
It is, Fran, yeah. As you if they rely on different charities then to try and get help, like, so, like the Jack and Jill, like, and St. Vincent de Paul and the Hospice Society, like, if they weren't there, like, to be a lot of other families in crisis.
Yeah.
But they're picking up the pieces. The government are not.
But that soaks up your time as well, doesn't it?
That's it, yeah. And then carers are getting reviews every couple of months, like, just to see if I'm earning an extra few pound or not, and they're looking for bank statements, Revolut statements. So...
Are you serious? Tell me about that. Every few months?
Yeah. It could be 6-7 months, and to be looking for sending out reviews. You have to send in statements and filling up forms, and yeah.
That's incredible. I mean, especially with the emotional roller coaster that you're going through, and still you have to do that kind of administration, you know.
As you know, Fran, our son passed away there 3 months tomorrow.
Sure.
Like, Maggie only received a review there 2 weeks ago. Yeah. You go off and find bank statements and Revolut statements and fill out forms. Yeah.
God, it's all very cold, isn't it?
Yeah, people don't see this part, like, so... And it's shameful. You have to come out and you have to shame the government into getting this extra bit of help, like. So.
You mentioned Maggie, of course, and your email. I was really taken by it, Michael, because you offered a kind of a moving glimpse into marriage while parenting a child with special needs. You wrote that marriage is difficult. By the way, I think this email should be published somewhere. You wrote that marriage is difficult, but raising a medically complex child is trying to hold hands in a hurricane.
That's right, Fran. It does take its toll, like, especially when you don't get the help in sport. They should be there. Like.
Will you tell me more about that? Because you said that, again, looking after somebody, and God knows somebody you loved dearly, Alex, but you said it changes you, both of you, individually and as a couple. Would you tell me a bit more about that?
Like, a lot of hospital appointments, and you don't be together. Like Alex gave 9 months in hospital. Like, we were 9 months apart. Like, just switching from week to week. You meet each other door for an hour, and then you're switching again for. It takes its toll. It's hard. Like.
Yeah, you said you don't get date nights; you get hospital nights.
Yeah. But you give your time for that child, like, that's all part of caring. You kind of forget about your marriage and you're there for the child, and it's understandable, like, I don't think it's a bad thing either, like,
Oh, not at all. It's just the way you describe it, and the beautiful way you describe it. I mean, I hope you don't mind me reading out this, by the way. But you said you miss each other even when you're sitting in the same room, and then you went on to say something extremely profound, Alti. You said one of you becomes the researcher, one becomes the protector, one runs on logic, the other on emotion. Sometimes those roles switch. Sometimes you're both drowning at once. It's almost like a poem or something. It's incredible insight into what it's like.
It is, friend. So, a lot of people don't see that side of caring either. Like, like you dedicate so much time to the person you're caring for. You kind of forget about your other life.
And you said in the late...
It takes its toll on the other children in the house as well, like, as you have to dedicate so much time to that person you're caring for. And
tell me about that, because I often wonder about that, where the spotlight has to be on the child with the very challenging needs. But does it make them better people? I think I spoke to Maggie about this in the past.
It does, Fran, yeah. But if I do find it hard, like, like, it's going to a soccer match, you can't be there for them, and things like that, like.
And do they get used to that, Michael?
They do get used to it, but I think it does take its toll. And like, every child likes their two parents to be there for them. If they're going through something, like, and someone to speak to.
Yeah. You spoke as well about rebuilding something deeper. You said it's not the same marriage, it's a stronger one, a softer one, a marriage rooted in teamwork, battle scars, and a love that has been tested but persevered. This has to get national attention. This has to be published.
Well, unfortunately, Fran, I don't think government, they don't want this people to see that side, like the strains and the pressures on carers, like.
Yeah, but you make the point that, marriage vows, there's the little line in there for better or worse.
Yeah.
But but God knows you had to live your life by that.
That's it, friend, and
Yeah. Can I ask you about, and I really don't mean to upset you, but since Alex passed away, I presume there's a void there, Michael.
a massive void, friend. He was such a big part of our lives, like, from morning to night, like, we'll be caring for him, like, so you go to sleep worrying about him, and then you wake up in the morning worrying about him, and there's such a busy house, like.
Yeah.
All that has gone now, like, it's not the same as.
So it's a much quieter.
A much quieter, yeah.
Yeah. And is he remembered in everything you do, because you would have had to include him in your thoughts if you were doing something or going somewhere?
That's his well, friend, yeah. Every hour, every day, like, you'd always have to. He'd be the first thought, like,
Yeah. It's a fantastic insight, Michael, and I think all the powers that be need to hear from you and hear about you and stuff, because it's incredible. Michael, I know you were nervous coming on, but it was really good of you to talk to us today, Michael, and I wish you well, and to Maggie and your family.
I just think carers should deserve a proper pay wage, like, so, especially if they're going on taxing them, like. Like, if they had to bring in carers to mind these people, they're on 14 to 20 euros an hour, like, and a carer plays a doctor's role, a nurse's role. It's more than just a mother, like, to do the whole lot.
And no appreciation. I remember Maggie saying to me years ago that carers are expected to live on nothing, but everything is a battle, right from the very start,
That's it, yeah.
Michael, thank you for your time this morning, and do look after yourself. My best to Maggie and your family. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Michael. Thank you very much. Michael Power speaking to us there. What do you make of that conversation? 1800 938 007.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Hook On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Hook On. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
This was as fair play to Michael. I'm listening to every word he speaks, and every word he speaks is the truth, and nobody knows unless they're going through the path of caring. I'm in tears listening to him, as it's the same here with me. It's very hard to make ends meet on carers allowance. This is one of our listeners to us today. 083 311 3311. Fran, carers are treated like an invisible safety net. The government only remembers when it suits them. They know you can't withdraw your labour, and they know that you can't withdraw because walking away isn't an option, it says here. That's in from Barbara to us today. Lots more coming in on that, and I'll get back to it in just a little while. But last January, chartered accountant and property owner Bobby Fitzgerald joined us on the show after the Main Street Business Initiative Group in Carrick and Suir completed a public petition of over 6,670 signatures calling for retention of existing parking spaces on the main street in the town. And Bobby joins me again now with an update. Good morning to you, Bobby.
Good morning. Thanks a million, Fran, and thanks to you and everyone at Tipp FM for inviting me onto the show this morning. I genuinely appreciate the platform and the respect you've shown by giving the people of Carrick and Suir a fair hearing. Well,
always happy to do that, Bobby, but sadly we didn't really help you last time round because there's been no movement on this.
Well, I'm here because locals have done everything that was asked of them, Fran. They signed petitions, filled in surveys, turned up at meetings, and yet they feel their voices have been quietly pushed aside. This is about far more than parking, Fran. It's about basic respect for our town, its people, and the main street that are fighting for their future, their livelihoods, and whether ordinary people are truly listened to or just simply managed by civil servants. And if I can expand on that, Fran, last January, as you correctly stated, we gave petitions to the then Carrick of the local municipal council, Councillor Mark Fitzgerald, amounting to 6,670, which were independently verified by a firm of accountants. We met him, handed in, and we got acknowledgement. But since then, we have received no engagement. In fact, the petitions and the nature of the petition calling for the retention of parking on the main street in Carrick and Suir is not even allowed to be discussed at the local authority meeting. It has been completely ignored. And Fran, we are hurt. People in our town are hurt. Our membership is hurt. It's not just that their concerns are being brushed aside. It's the way they're being treated for even raising them. From day one, our approach has been respectful and solution-focused. We put practical ideas, but the local authority executive, the director of services, the district administrator have been very controlled, closed-door style of engagement. They're happy to accept our documents and send polite acknowledgements, Fran. But because we're not simply nodding along with their pre-packed solution of tourism and rural renewal for our town and their blueprint, we're kept at arm's length.
And Bobby, just for our listeners, for clarity here, we're still talking about saving. Is it 21 parking spaces that face removal as part of that regeneration scheme?
Well, Fran, they took 6 already away.
That's COVID related, was it?
COVID related, and now they're going to remove a further 21.
Yes.
That's 50% of parking on the main street of Carrick and Suir that does 50% of the trade. And it's a top-down strongman style approach being used by the local authority, similar to what Donald Trump is doing in the US today. And you can see...
that's a bit strong. That's a bit strong now, Bobby, isn't it?
I'm going to expand, Frank, and I'm going to give you an example. You can see how the process is being stage managed. There's no problem with the local authority having endless one-to-one chats. By our count, they could clock up 70 individual private meetings. They're happy to meet with members on a one-to-one basis, but they refuse to attend our public meeting even after a formal invitation, and will not deal with the group as a whole, even though we have properly mandated authority, written signed authority from our members. That's the central issue. They talk to you as long as you're on your own and don't question the basic shape of their plan.
Yes, because they admit, as you say, that they continue to engage on a one-to-one basis with businesses and property owners as part of that regeneration process. Why do you think that is? Do you think it would be daunting to meet a group of people? Is that what that's about?
No, Fran. For a decision of this scale, it's just inadequate. It's childish behaviour. It just reminds me of an episode from Peppa Pig. A lot of quiet chats in the corner, but nobody willing to stand in the middle of the room and answer any grown-up question.
But they're saying, Bobby, that the concerns expressed to them will be very much at the centre of how the works are delivered. Do you not accept that?
No, I don't, and I'm going to deal with that when we come on to the Gold Crop Survey. But the original submissions on the rural renewal regeneration consisted of 327 submissions, compared to our 6,670. And of those submissions, only 8 mentioned parking. Two of those only called for the reduction of parking on the main street, and on that basis they have decided to reduce 50% of the parking on a street that does 50% of the trade. In any healthy democracy, that should mean something. 6,700. It should be a moment when councillors say, we need to stop, listen and bring these people into the heart of this process. But with the exception of Councillor Michael Brennan, who has been frozen out on a number of issues, the actual elected members have rallied around the council executive. But Fran, I just want to say a couple of things about what's going to happen. I want to talk about our main street because I know what's going to happen. And it's as simple as this, Fran. The main street isn't just a row of shop fronts. It's the town's main artery. For many older people living alone, that shop walk up the town into Whelan's, Butcher, Coughlin's, Kemmins. That might be the only human interaction or contact they get all day. If we hollow out the street, if we make it harder to park, harder to trade, and push business to the brink to a year and a half of upheaval, that's right, Fran. It's going to take 14 months to do the regeneration from. We're gambling with the 250 jobs, and we run the risk of empty units, dereliction, and antisocial behaviour. We already have experience of this. Irish Water, with the last 6 or 7 weeks, up our main street, digging it up from one end to the other. Turnover is down by a third. Well, I'll say to the people of Carrick and the local authority, I know of 7 to 10 businesses that won't even survive the regeneration period, never mind, say, the aftermath. It's absolutely horrendous.
And Bobby, you alluded there to Gold Crop, which is that site. Surely that could be the answer to some of these issues.
It would help. It's a 2.7 acres of prime land less than 100 metres from the main street. But this means that, residents can park near their homes and shops, traders with customers who can actually stop and spend, and older people and anyone with mobility issues can spare an uphill slog, and visitors, of course, with clear place to park. We're not against tourism, Fran, but we are against this regeneration programme where the needs of the people of our town who live here 365 days a year and who live here where tourists are given precedent over them. And that's what has happened with this feasibility study and survey, which was completed by an enormous amount of petitioners, 2,200, whereby basically it contained systematic bias. From the very first line, the poor survey gave the game away. Help us to improve Carrick and Suir as a tourism destination. But there was nothing about making the town easier to live in.
Right, so you're saying that the questioning on the questionnaire was biased in some ways. Is that what you're saying?
It was full of bias. There was nothing about the town easier to live in, to trade in, or simply get around. The tick boxes were all about plazas, water sport and leisure. Nothing about town centre parking. But here's the thing, Fran. Even with the survey stacked that way, over 700 people under the other box actually typed in the working towards parking and bus parking as an essential need for our town. Furthermore, what we have a serious issue with, there was one question asked in the survey, which was completed by 2,200 surveys, people online, when an entire question relating to an important issue in our town was deliberately omitted by the local authority.
Which question was that?
That question asked the subscribers to the survey and the feasibility to study to say, how would you rate the tourism experience in our town? Good, very good, fair, poor, very poor. You know yourself. And when an entire question quietly disappears from the results, people are right to ask, what answer was so inconvenient it had to be erased? That's not transparency, Fran. That's editing the story after you've heard it. And to be honest with you, Fran, I know what the result is. It was a negative. Because if that was positive, they'd flash it in your face, the local authority.
Right, but I don't have to tell Bobby Fitzgerald, though, how important developing tourism is for the town of Carrick and Suir.
And as I say to you there, we're not against tourism. We basically have a problem with this type of regeneration, where the needs of the people of our town, parking, access, mobility, are not given precedent, where tourism is given precedent over the needs of people who live in this town 365 days a year. We don't have any issue with this regeneration. We welcome it. We welcome tourism. But what's the point, Fran, of having lovely trees on the main street in Carrick and lovely paving when we have dereliction, empty shop units, and basically antisocial behaviour and graffiti? We need to get needs first.
Well, one of the schemes that could be very helpful is the living over the shop scheme. But even where that's concerned, you have an issue, because obviously, if somebody's living over a shop, they'll probably need a place to park a car.
That's correct, Fran. Our only agenda is to protect spaces on the main street of Carrick and Suir. We have no other issue with the positive initiatives going on in town. At its core, over the shop is a very good idea. It's about bringing life back over the main street, turning dark upstairs windows into lived-in homes, putting more people on the street and supporting local shops, cafes and pubs. And at a recent local authority, in fairness to Councillor Kieran Buck raised the issue, in fairness to him, and he asked the question of the Director of the Services, how will this impact on parking? And it was a very good question, because at the moment we have a number of traders, takeaways, restaurants, hotels, beauticians and hairdressers who operate after dark and Sunday morning. And you can't get a space at the moment because there's actually 33 apartments, residential apartments, on the main street. The answer to the question given by the Director of Services was, to be honest with you, atrocious. He basically said, only a few properties on the main street will avail of the scheme, and there's plenty of yards out the back, and there's sufficient parking capacity. We all know that we need one parking space for each apartment. We want a full analysis. We want to know where these buildings are. Do these yards, are they coming up from lanes? Do they require planning permission? Is there a safety issue with the clear line of sight? If they come onto the main street, are they going to cause further congestion? You see, parking on the main street is cumulative. It happens over time, Fran. And that's not an acceptable answer. We can't accept that.
The people in your initiative, will you resort to the courts where this is concerned, do you think, Bobby?
Well, at the moment, Frank, we played it from the very start. We played it straight, no theatrics. We lodged 3 separate complaints with the Ombudsman, one about the community petition, one about the public participation network, and we're certainly going to add a third with the gold crop systematic bias contained in the survey. Despite the fact that the results run contrary to what they propose to do on the main street. The Ombudsman will actually issue a result in 3 to 4 weeks' time. I'm actually talking to him later on in the week. I'm not going to second-guess the Ombudsman on the air, but we're expecting a number of adverse findings to against the local municipal authority and Tipperary County Council, at least against 2 of the complaints in the next 4 to 8 weeks to deal with malpractice and maladministration. As regards the courts, Fran, it's as simple as this, Fran. We have one hand extended for compromise and the other holding a fully drafted High Court case, just in case the first hand gets slapped away. But I'd say we are business people, not barristers. We want customers on the main street, not a day out in the High Court.
Right, so you'd prefer to sit down and sort this out than end up in the courts?
Of course, it doesn't. And what I would say, and I make this appeal to the county manager, Sinead Carr, who I know and who I have a deep respect for, and just say to her, if you strip away the paperwork, this isn't a row about forms. It's a fight for the future of a small town's people's livelihood. Respect the petition, fix the consultation, tell the truth about gold crop, answer all the survey questions, and we'll do the rest. Give Carrick and Suir and his people, the group I represent, a fair hearing, and the main street will thrive. Ignore us, and you don't just lose parking, you lose the heart of our town and the people within it.
All right, Bobby. Well, we'll continue to follow the story. But thank you for coming on with us today, Bobby.
Just before you go, I just want to give a shout out to Liam Cahill, a great manager, a very good human being. He does a lot of work behind the scenes with charity, sick children, and well done to himself and the lads on Saturday. Delighted that Cashel O'Reilly, it wasn't too long ago, Cashel was down the office, related to my business partner, doing work experience with his sister. And of course, Carrick's own Stephen Tobin. Well done, Stephen. I know I married into the Tobin family, but you're doing Carrick proud. So I want to say, up Tipp, but up Carrick.
Well said, Bobby. Well said indeed. Look after yourself, and thank you for coming on. Thank you. Good morning to you. This is Bobby Fitzgerald speaking to us from Carrick and Suir this morning. One of our listeners on to say, Carrick and Suir, no Garda station, a hospital gone, our cattle mart left to go. Our last industry gone now, Miloko, and now they want to finish off the shops, says a listener. This is a disgrace. I'm a business owner. It will finish our thriving business at this point. That's it. It was on 083 311 3311.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tipp today on 1-800-938-007.
And you're very welcome back to Tipp Today. Now, that conversation with Bobby there generated an awful lot of text and WhatsApp indeed. Let me just bring you a few. All we want is our main street to be left alone, Fran. Leave our car park spaces on the main street, it says here. Fran, people need to listen to Bobby Fitzgerald, as everything he said this morning is true. People are currently going to other towns to shop because the main street is impossible to get parking, and it's very unfair to businesses who pay the rates to have shops. Keep the street alive is the message there. Well, I'm a very frequent visitor to the main street there in Carrick and Suir. I love to go to the Sunnyside cafe with Pat and Jackie there, and it's always a pleasure. Sometimes it is a struggle to park, but worth it in the end, I have to say, especially for the omelette. The parking situation is total disregard to older people in our town, so many of them need to park close to our butchers and pharmacies, quite often leaving them with large bags. It's a disgrace, being championed by just a few people in the town. And some of our councillors are out of touch, it says here. Somebody else saying, protect our main street, parking and business in Carrick and Suir. These new plans cannot go ahead. The people of Carrick and surrounding areas need parking. If this goes on, the local businesses will be affected 100%. And you know, a question actually, was it last week I was in Carrick, and almost every time I go to Carrick, the meters are broken. They're not working for some reason or other. So I just wonder, does anybody else find that issue in Carrick and Suir? And if so, you might be able to tell me why it's the case. Now, a Dublin judge made headlines over recent weeks after he reduced a €50,000 damages award by 80% to a cyclist who suffered a brain injury when he and a motorbike collided, stating that cyclists had become a nightmare in the city. Well, Donal was in touch with us, and he says this nightmare is evident in Nina. He joins me now. Good morning to you, Donal.
Good morning, Fran, and good morning to your listeners, and Happy New Year to all.
And many happy returns to you, and good to talk to you again, Donal. Would you go so far as to say that cyclists, that they're a menace in Nina? Because that's what the judge said.
Just on that, just before Christmas, in the 2 evenings directly before Christmas Eve, I just happened to be around Nina. Now, it was dark, of course, and I encountered over the 2 evenings 6 cyclists. Nobody had a front light, a rear light, a high-vis vest, a Sam Brown, not even an armband, not to mention a helmet. So they just sort of loomed at you out of the darkness, like, you know. And in some places in Nina we have cycling lanes, but a new concept now is to go contra to the flow of traffic in the cycling lane. So they're actually coming at you from the wrong direction in the dark with nothing to make themselves visible.
And you can't see them?
No, until the very last minute.
Right. But if they're in the cycling lane, why is that a particular problem? Now, I know they should be lit up anyway, but I'm just wondering if they're in the lane, Donal.
But they're still not visible. I mean, you take it this way, Fran, a car could pull into that cycling lane for whatever reason. If they're turning into an entrance or turning down a side road, but they're still not visible to you.
Yeah, and why do you think this is the case? I mean, are cyclists, do they think they're invincible or something if they're...
Well, I think some of them think they're built like a Sherman tank, like, you know, they literally can go anywhere, across country, the whole lot. But, no, I'll put it this way. 2 years ago, I was in Dublin, and it was late in the evening again, and I encountered, say, about 20 cyclists. And now, in fairness, about a third had everything. Full high-vis, lights, front and rear, the whole lot. Another third had at least one item, and another third had absolutely nothing. So it's not just Nina alone. It's obviously in Dublin, as the judge has highlighted already. It seems to be across the country. And some people just take a chance and they assume that it'll be grand, but it might not be grand, you see.
Well, certainly not, because, I mean, that chap in Dublin, he might have had his damages reduced, but he's left with a brain injury.
This is the thing, and it's most unfortunate that that's the case, because, very simply, if, say, a car hits a pedestrian, even at 30 miles an hour, there's a high likelihood that the pedestrian is going to be seriously injured, or the cyclist, or possibly worse. That's statistically borne out, and clearly in the case where that cyclist actually encountered a motorcyclist, I think it was.
Yeah.
The cyclist came off worse.
Yeah, and are you coming across the dreaded scooters as well, Donal? Do you see them around the place too?
Oh my goodness, yes, the famous e-scooters.
Yeah.
I've seen guys race them on the main road in the dark with no lights at all. I encountered one lad on the Sunday evening, completely invisible, except he had one tiny brake light. I mean, it was like one LED on the very base of the machine. That's all you could see. It was like a little eye winking at you. And
this is in the dark. In the dark.
In the dark. And it's fascinating. But again, even yesterday evening, I was coming out of a parking space in Nina, and this chap whizzes up the street. Now, he wasn't a young fella. No lights, no nothing, front or rear, nothing. He must be eating an awful lot of carrots so you could see where he's going like that, but it was just, it's terrifying, because they just come at you from all directions. And last year I was in Dublin, and I was coming up the dual carriageway heading for the M50 near Finglas, and I saw this thing coming at me on the wrong side of the road, and it turned out to be a cyclist in black jeans, black jacket, black hood, black bicycle, and himself was as black as the Ace of Spades. And I flashed the lights once, twice, then I leaned on the horn. Then suddenly he realised, I'm in the wrong lane, and veered off.
But so, you could have easily knocked him down.
Well, if I was a truck now, I wouldn't have been able to slow down. Now, at least not as quickly anyway.
Yeah.
And he could have been under the wheels of the truck.
But it seems to me there's never been as much education around road safety. And
well, that's true. There's ads all over the place on radio and television, local papers and all the rest of it. But I think some people just are not getting the message. You can even, the most recent incident that was in the media there, where that poor young lady unfortunately lost her life in Dublin.
Yeah.
Was a collision with
the scrambler bike. Yeah.
Scrambler.
Yeah,
which shouldn't be on the road in the first place. They're meant to be off-road. Because most scramblers I've seen have no lights at all, either front or rear. And they just wouldn't be visible in the evening time. Not sure when this accident actually occurred now, whether it was afternoon or evening, I don't know. But still, same vehicle shouldn't have been on the road.
And I see her poor mother leading a protest last night for it's just heartbreaking, isn't it? She's
absolutely heartbreaking, Fran. God help her.
She said she had to watch Grace take her last breath, and it was the worst pain imaginable. Leanne just did a bit of research for us there, Donal, and cyclists and road users must follow all of the traffic laws. This is the law. They need functional front and rear lights and reflectors during sunset to sunrise. They must cycle on the left. They must use hand signals. When have you recently seen anybody use hand signals? And avoid cycling on footpaths unless permitted as well. So the rules go on and on and on, and there's fines that can be issued as well. So it's very clear what the law is.
But it's just not being entertained, if you like, by certain people anyway, for sure. Even last night now, I was coming out from work, and I had pulled up at a pedestrian crossing to allow 2 or 3 pedestrians cross the road, and then out of a gateway on my immediate left pops a cyclist. No lights, no nothing, again, and goes diagonally across the road through the pedestrian crossing and off with himself. It's like a game of skittles here, somebody's going to get clobbered if that continues, and obviously they have, and it will. Unfortunately, this is going to continue unless something is done. But going back to the famous e-scooters, that was a major faux pas on behalf of the government again. we should have just banned them outright.
Do you think?
End of story.
Yeah.
And not to be imported, not to be sold. But now, of course, we're dealing with the problem after we've allowed it to occur yet again.
Well, I think it was the Green Party government at the time wanted to promote them as some form of alternative, I suppose, to the Dlush
Don't get me started on the Green Party now, Fran, please. That's like...
Just trying to annoy you on a Tuesday.
Same as bull now at this stage. I'm pawing at the ground here.
Come here, on a much happier note, we've been indulging in nostalgia for the past couple of weeks, and Leanne was telling me you have some great memories about Nina back over the years, Donal.
Well, and you did a series there, I mean, we were still doing it, on factories that have closed.
Yeah.
And I worked for 22 years of my life in a famous organisation called Procter & Gamble.
Yes.
And that would have started out life in Roscrea in 1978, and was then known as Richards and Vicks. And it moved Nina to a pre-built factory in 1979. And it went from strength there, and taken over by the famous Procter & Gamble in 1987. Kim Carter, that famous multinational.
Yes.
With a huge multi-billion turnover, multi-billion profits, and all that goes with it. And at one stage, I remember, we had 660 employees directly.
Wow.
And we had another 100 contractors in a compound out the back, because they'd be doing steel fabrication, electrics, mechanical work, and all that sort of stuff. Like, it was like a little city within a city. And I mean, the activity in the place was phenomenal. It was 24/7 operation at one stage, and the spin-off to the town was huge, and the entire hinterland of North Tipperary and beyond. I mean, the wage bill alone was 15 million plus a year, at least.
So to the local economy, that must have been...
Yes.
Huge.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of auctioneers who fattened on it, shall we say, and a lot of car dealers did likewise.
Yeah, sure.
It was a major contribution to the local economy, and unfortunately, it hasn't been replaced.
Yeah. When did that close down, Donal?
Well, we left it in 2009-10,
yes,
and it continued on for another 5 or 6 years. And eventually was taken over by Coty. The last part of the business was taken over by them. And then they closed subsequently a number of years later, unfortunately. So it's now actually producing, I think, that site is producing porta cabins, slot-in bathrooms, that kind of carry on.
But at least it's still being used in some fashion. But you're saying at its height, almost 700 people working there, yeah?
Yes. I mean, that was just incredible. And then you add into that Rowan Prolonged Roar just over the other side of the town, another 250 employees odd.
Yeah.
And that, unfortunately, now also is gone. And yet again, there's no plan to replace industry in rural towns, which would make a lot of sense, because you would reduce the famous traffic commutes, would reduce the famous emissions, courtesy of the Green Party, dare we mention them again. It would make more sense. But if we're not in Dublin, Cork or Limerick, now forget it, there won't be any industrial development.
And do you mean outside of Dublin, is that it, that there's not a...
Yes, if we're outside the Pale, or you're in the People's Republic of Cork, or maybe Limerick, possibly Galway a bit, that's it. As far as I can see, there's no...
See, and still we have the perception that Nina is doing better than any other town in Tipperary. It almost looks like it's thriving and busy and bustling and the like, Donal.
Well, you see, it always had an industrial base, even going back to the time of Cashel Brand and the aluminium factory and all that. And that sort of developed from there over the generations, right up to the late 1990s and early 2000s. But after that, industrially, we went into decline, unfortunately. But it always was better as an employing town than, say, the likes of Tipperary Town. Now, Tipperary Town had its own industry as well, but unfortunately that closed. Yeah. So that left it denuded of economic potential, if you like, and the town there suffered greatly because of it, I think, anyway. Because Tipperary Town was never regarded as a great shopping town going back over the years. Nina was always regarded as the premier shopping town in Munster, and still is.
Well, in fairness to Tipperary Town, they have a lot of very fine shops there, within the town at this time. But I'm just thinking, you're right, I think, major industrial investments won't come to smaller towns. But looking to the future, what is the future, do you think, Donal? I mean, is it tourism?
Tourism would be great.
Is a small indigenous business? What is it? What is the future, do you think?
The capacity to develop business ideas from people who actually have the ideas and the foresight and the vision to do something. Now, this is part of the problem. You can have an idea, but getting support to bring that idea to fruition, that's going to be a problem. The idea of the start your own business course, again, a great idea, but it's only a shadow of what it used to be. Mm-hmm. I remember doing a start your own business course way back the years, courtesy of ANCO, and it went on for several weeks.
Yes, yeah.
I did one recently, last year actually, and it lasted a day.
Wow.
So that's the difference.
Yeah.
And furthermore then, if you do have an idea, getting finance to actually do something with it is a major problem because there are no grants. There's one grant at the moment which helps you generate a website, but AI can now generate a website for you for free.
Yeah, and everything is evolving so quickly. Are you saying, the powers that be aren't catching up?
No, we're not. Again, we don't plan ahead in this country, unfortunately.
Future-proof, isn't that the phrase now that we need to do?
Exactly.
And we're not doing it.
We need to be planning several governments in advance. Yeah. But we won't do that because they'll all fight with each other anyway. And
they're going to look for... they'll need votes after 5 years, you see, so they'll play to the gallery when it suits.
The way things are going at the moment, it might be closer than 5 years, considering the, shall we say, popularity results.
You're referring to that poll at the weekend, are you?
Oh, Fran, with his tongue stuck in his cheek, maybe I am slightly referring to it.
Donal, I must leave it there, but a pleasure to talk to you as always, Donal. Thanks for your time this morning. Thank you. Mind those bicycles, and thanks, Donal. Thank you.
With great care.
Bye-bye to you now. News and information is coming up.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24 111.
Thanks, Pat. Welcome back to the second hour of Tip Today. Now, just a while back, I was speaking to Bobby Fitzgerald from Carrick and Suir, and he was talking to us about the parking issues down there. Jamie was on to us, and he said that man, that would be Bobby, is 100% right. Nina is ruined with pedestrian crossings, and so is Burr, it says here. To us as well. Well done, Bobby. Fair and honest man. This is one of our listeners. Somebody else saying what common sense this man is talking, Fran. Towns all over Ireland being destroyed by councils. Keep parking. Don't take them away. Well done to Bobby. It says here, thanks, Fran, for bringing up the problems of our main street in Carrick and Suir. It's all true. The main street is the heart of our town where the community comes together to shop. In the few shops left, if the parking goes, so will the community. There's nothing left in Carrick and Suir. Everything has been taken from us, says Mary, who describes herself as being born and bred in the town of Carrick and Suir. Don't touch the parking spaces. We need them, says another listener. And Fran, you're dead right. As a shop owner, I reported this only to it falling on deaf ears. I guess that's making reference to what I said about the parking meters. The last 3 or 4 times, certainly I've been in Carrick, I've had problems with the meters not working. The last week, it was the one opposite the pantry there in Carrick and Suir. I don't know what this is, because they look to be sort of newish and very high-tech parking meters. So I'm not sure what the problem is there. Justice Minister Jim O'Callaghan confirmed last week that the government has approved the Communications Bill, that's the Interception and Lawful Access Bill, paving the way for enhanced Garda access to digital communications if the legislation is passed by the Oireachtas. Now, the proposed law ostensibly modernises Ireland's interception framework and substantially increases the ability of Gardaí to search messages and data stored on phones, computers and other digital devices. Well, Matt O'Reilly is a cryptographic systems design specialist and he's been looking into this and he joins me now. Matt, good morning to you.
Good morning, Fran. How are you today?
I'm very well and lovely to talk to you again. To begin with, I can barely pronounce it once, but let me try it again. What in the name of God, Matt, is a cryptographic systems design specialist? What is that?
So cryptography by itself is it's kind of, think of it as camouflage for data. So if you encrypt something, you can make the data be unintelligible. It looks like random noise to anyone who isn't supposed to be able to read it. And so you have just like a lock, you would have a key that you would use to encrypt the data, and then depending on the system, either the same or a different key to decrypt it afterward. And so I have spent my career designing and building systems that allow for those things to take place. The easiest way to describe what I do is to say that, if you're in your web browser and you go to your bank's website and you see that little lock, I'm the fellow that designs the system that allows that lock to be there.
Right, so system security for the simple man like me. Well, is that what it is? That's all right.
Yeah.
So you're ideally placed to talk about this, Matt. You believe in the Gardaí and you appreciate the job that they're doing on our behalf, but you do have concerns about how the force is evolving in some way.
I do. And, in some ways, there is certainly a necessity that the legislation needs to be updated and that some of the Gardaí's powers need to be improved so that they can do their job more effectively. The technology has outstripped some of the things that were in the legislation the last time around. And my concern isn't that the Gardaí are making changes or that need to make changes. My concern is what we're seeing from the Minister's office so far, and I understand that this is early stages, but there isn't a whole lot of, there's not a lot of emphasis on accountability. Mm. And accountability is absolutely crucial whenever you have any sort of power expansion. And that's what we're running into here, is definitively a power expansion. From some of the other groups that have expressed concern about this, we're seeing that there is. They're speaking to the need for it, but not speaking how to address the inevitable abuses that are going to occur as a part of it, and how those might be curbed. And
do you get any solace from Jim O'Callaghan saying, speaking about robust legal safeguards, including judicial authorisation of the request for the interception, I suppose? Do you get any assurance from that, Matt?
I've done most of my career has been done in the United States, and they have that same sort of quote unquote robust legal oversight there, including the FISA court and things like that. And unfortunately, if it's a closed system where there is a tight grouping, a tight interaction between that legal system and the Gardaí themselves, it tends to become greased. And so it happens in ways that maybe it shouldn't have, and only the most egregious abuses get stopped, rather than some of the more pedantic or pedantry abuses that happen on a daily basis whenever you have, and to put that in more concrete terms, if someone can go, if a guard can say, I need to install this software on a particular user's mobile phone so that we can find out if they are doing anything, wrong. As long as they make the application look plausible, nobody will necessarily know that the phone actually belongs to their partner and they're doing just fine because they suspect they might be cheating or something along those lines. And we would like to believe that no guard would ever do this, and most guards would not. But we need to make certain that the safeguards are independently auditable and not necessarily part of the legal executive framework that the Guardians sit in right now.
But I'd imagine that would be very difficult to put in place, Matt.
If it's worth doing, it's worth doing well.
Yeah.
And the problem that you get is if you don't put those safeguards into place, and it's not as difficult as it might otherwise seem. There are, people like me who do deal in risk management for a living.
Yes.
We put this in place at, Fortune 100 companies all the time. This is not out of the realm of possibility, nor is it, something that would be so far removed from what we already do in Ireland to be able to do that. And so it is so important, because if we do this expediently in a way that is not the right way to do it, but is just to get it done, what we'll find is that we get systems where you get abuses of power that have no check because they weren't thought of ahead of time. So what we need... Yeah, go ahead.
I beg your pardon, Matt, but if you read enough into the proposed legislation, though, I think you'll probably see the real reason for this, which is improved international cooperation and meeting Council of Europe requirements. So this is really what's behind this, isn't it?
Well, they're pushing the limits of what the EU proposal contains, and so there is more in this. They're kind of brushing up against the maximum limits of what the proposal is supposed to cover. And so my concern is we want to make certain, and my job here is to raise the alert. I am not saying that we should be, alarmed about this, that we should be necessarily doing something differently, but we need to have the awareness around it to make certain that we do it correctly.
You tend to use rather elaborate language when you hear the argument, if you've done nothing wrong, you've nothing to hide. You don't go along. you don't go along with that, to say the least, Matt.
Correct, yeah, and that is something that I have been fighting my entire career. That we hear this all the time, especially from law enforcement. Oh, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. Why would you? But do you have a front door on your house? Do you have a door on your toilet? Do you have a door on your bedroom? There are things that we do that are not illegal that we still don't want to be exposed to anyone and everyone. And that extends to our digital lives as well. And so, I don't necessarily want love notes to my wife to be read out in the open. And I certainly don't want some private things that are just between us to be available just because someone thinks that there might be something going on. I want there to be a robust process so that if someone were to say, I want to look at Matt's text messages or Matt's phone or whatever it is, that there's a sound reason for doing so and some accountability if they're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Now, my understanding is that certainly some of the more public cases that I would have read about, there is already access to mobile phone data. Is that access on kind of shaky ground with the current legislation, Matt?
It is my understanding. So we were talking. Someone mentioned EncroChat the other day on your program. EncroChat was a purpose-built, sort of bespoke system that many criminals. I think they were talking about 60,000 or so criminals were using worldwide to be able to communicate. And the problem that we had was that, or not we had. The problem that the Irish government seems to have had. Most other places such as France, the Netherlands, the UK were using EncroChat data after the server was compromised by Interpol to be able to prosecute within their territories. And there seems to be a reluctance on the part of the DPP here to use that information because they weren't certain that it would stand up to legal scrutiny about whether or not it was admissible.
Interesting. So again, is this why they're attempting to put this legislation into place? Is that based on?
I believe it is. Okay. Yes. Yeah. I think this is, and it's a necessary upgrade. There are, but like I think it was Mr. Lowry who was saying the other day that we need to legislate to principle and not to process. We should have legislation that should withstand the ins and outs of technological changes in a way that provides us the same level of guarantee without having to be updated every 2 or 5 years when the technology underneath something has changed.
Right, well, good luck with that, Matt, because, I mean, at the rate it's evolving, I mean, if you take AI, for example, you'd have to legislate every week, would you not, from what I've been looking at anyway?
I would say no, because that would be legislating to technology, right? That is not legislating to principle. The principle is that we should not be having racy images of people made without their consent. And so we can put legislation in that says if you are going to make an image of someone, they must either consent to it if it contains this, or it may not be made public unless there is consent, or something along those lines, which takes it out of the technology realm. Now, the other side of that is that there is no way to get to 100%. People can always use something in an abusive way, even if what they're doing is legal. As a friend of mine once said, any tool is a weapon if you hold it right. And the idea there is that there are always going to be bad actors who are going to abuse the tools that are available. And it doesn't matter if they're AI or any other machine learning, or, there's sticks and stones in the street. Someone could make a sand art that is a nude nude image of someone, and it would be no different than using AI to do it. And we have to be able to come up with some sort of legislation that covers both of those use cases.
So overall, the proposed legislation then that Jim O'Callaghan is proposing, how do you view it then? Are you saying to me you have issues with it and that you have some concerns over it, but all in all, it's a good thing, is it?
It is a good thing that they are trying to do. And I have not read the full text of the latest version. It is not in its final form yet, as I understand it. I was not able to find something that said final form for submission yet. So, but I think that there is still some work to be done. There are still some refinements that need to be made, which is why I wanted to come on today to talk about this, because we need to raise the awareness in the public consciousness that this needs to be important enough to us as a people to do it right.
Can I ask you a couple of other questions that you would be well qualified to answer for me? Many conversations over the years about our mobile phones and our smart TVs and all of that, and whether they're listening to our conversations and whether they're gearing their algorithms through what they're hearing from us and that sort of thing. Is any of that true?
I hate to break it to you, Fran, but it is true. And I generally treat any electronic device in my vicinity as a potential listening point. To the point where I do not use Siri or Alexa or Cortana or any of the other services. I turn them all off on my phones. I turn the microphones off for any applications that I'm using. I get paid to be paranoid, and so I live but I have friends who work for the NSA who have Alexa at home, and they said to them it's an acceptable risk. They say, you know what, the chances that, I'm not going to say anything that's privileged within earshot of it, and anything that someone finds out from it, I just have to accept that is a possibility, and that I might be, that it might come back to bite me. But the convenience is worth it. And that's what security is across the board, is always a trade-off. There is always that you have to find that sweet spot between usability and the confidence that things are not going to be misused.
Right, but you, with everything that you know, Matt, and God knows it's enough, you're saying to me that you treat everything suspiciously, anything with a microphone on it, anything like that.
It's an exhausting life. I don't recommend it.
Right, but I mean, coming from you, this is vital information for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, and the problem is that the technology companies, the US set the stage for this 50 years ago, 40 years ago, with allowing technical companies to escape liability for anything. There's always a clause in every end-user licensing agreement that says we do not warrant this for any particular purpose. And so that's their sort of get-out-of-jail-free card. And so even when you have a company, Vizio got in trouble, VIZIO, the television company got in trouble a decade ago for listening to users' conversations. And the problem wasn't that they were listening to people in the in their living room. The problem was that it didn't say it anywhere in the user agreement. So if the user agreement states you're allowed to listen, then, and no one reads the agreement, then your television can listen in all at once. Now, thankfully, in the EU, there's GDPR, which very, very much limits, and it has actual teeth to prevent that from happening. But the service improvements that they do for all of the AI assistants and things like that, a lot of times snippets of those conversations are forwarded to real people to check the accuracy of the systems. And so, something that you say in confidence in your own home may actually end up in some users' ears in India or the Philippines or Singapore. And the question is that worth it to you that is a possibility? And
let me ask you this, Matt, going back to our initial conversation about, new laws that will give more access to our data. Could you see eventually that maybe law enforcement might get access to that kind of thing as well?
Well, that's how they get around a lot of the otherwise inaccessible data in the United States. So you'll have a company, Samsung or Sony or something like that collects a lot of this data, and then they will either license or sell that data outright to governments. And the governments say, we didn't snoop on the people. People were these companies got this information and they got it legally. We're just buying it from them. And that's the real concern that I have, and what the path that I don't want to see Ireland and the EU go down is to start making an end run, to get to their elbow and bypass the protections that are supposed to be keeping us safe in the process.
Matt, I need a Nurofen. That is incredible. What an incredible conversation. Matt, I hope we can do this again. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Thank you.
I'll be happy to chat with you anytime, Fran. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you. Gurmila Mahagut. That's Matt O'Reilly speaking to us there. Isn't that just incredible?
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, puck on. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Now, the White House officials sought to rapidly distance Donald Trump from the initial portrayals of the man fatally shot by federal officials in Minnesota as a gunman, as they faced a huge backlash indeed after video footage was widely seen to undercut their assertions. Now, the move came as Donald Trump's advisors appeared to realise that the portrayals of the man, Alex Pretty, who was reportedly licensed to carry a gun, had turned the killing into an even larger political liability for the president. But what about the twin city of Minneapolis and indeed the state of Minnesota? Regular contributor to the show, broadcaster Muiris Walsh, spent some time in Minnesota throughout the years, and he joins me now. Good morning to you, Muiris.
Morning, Fran.
Good to talk to you today. Since the spotlight came on Minnesota and Minneapolis for those unfortunate reasons, Muiris, we realise how little we know about the state and indeed the Twin City itself. You spent some time there over the years. Why, can I ask you why, Muiris?
I was there with work. Yeah. I used to work with Boston Scientific, and I was over there with work. I first went there in 1998, and I have to say this: it's a very cold state this time of year, weather-wise, and it gets very warm in the winter or in the summer. But it's very like Ireland, Fran, in terms of population and in terms of the urban-rural divide. What I mean by that is that you have larger, like you have the twin cities of Minneapolis, St. Paul. St. Paul is actually the state capital. And then you have St. Cloud and Rochester. But you could drive, we'll say, from Minneapolis to St. Cloud, and like leaving Dublin to go to Cork. Once you hit the Red Cow roundabout, there's nothing but rural Ireland between both, and there's strands of nothing. And Minnesota would be the same way. But crucially, if you look at the electoral map, and I think this is very important, they haven't voted. The state has not voted for a Republican candidate since Richard Nixon in 1972. even we'll say when the only state that was won in the 1984 election was Minnesota, for the Democrats was Minnesota, and that was because Walter Mondale, who's from the state, was the Democratic candidate. But if you look at the electoral map, the urban areas like Minneapolis, St. Paul, St. Cloud, Rochester are very, very blue, i.e. Democratic, or as they like to call themselves, they are the Democratic Farmers Labour Party. And then the other areas are very red, very Republican. So there is a big divide there.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And over the years, you would have mentioned to me that you were either going there or you had come back from there, Muiris, I remember, and you always spoke extremely fondly about it.
Oh, yeah, and lovely. It's actually called Minnesota Nice. That's what it's called. And the state of 10,000 lakes. And the thing that saddens me about this, without getting too political about it and what's going on in the streets there, and it's awful, is that it's not a representation of the people I've met in Minneapolis. And indeed, what's going on in America is not a representation of the American people that I've met and that I know. I mean, I would say, and I would stand in front of anybody and argue this, that the vast majority of Americans are like ourselves here. They're very honest, decent, kind, hard-working people. I think one of the issues is that over there is that we've seen, the rise of the far right here in Europe. We've seen it's all based on fear and anti-immigration. You look at Farage next door to us, another high-profile defector in Suir yesterday to reform from the Conservatives. And
he could well be in number 10 in a few years' time, Muiris, yeah?
Yeah, he could be. And, who would have predicted that 10 years ago? Trump was first elected 10 years. It's 10 years now, since Trump was first elected. So, to me, it's not a proper representation of what. But unfortunately, that's where we are.
And Muiris, when you were there, did you see evidence of immigration there? I know there's a big Somali population there, but you were telling Leanne that you came across, was it boat people from Vietnam that went there?
Yeah. There was a big area there that, if you remember, you and I are old enough to remember the boat people that had to flee Cambodia and Vietnam in 74, 75. And about 30 or 40,000 of them, refugees, were in Minnesota. And there is you're on your third generation there of the population, and they have shops, restaurants, they're nurses, doctors, carpenters, call it what you like, and they are very, they have their own culture and whatever.
But there was no evidence that you saw of any issues with people who emigrated there. No. And I mean, the thing is, my cousin's son is actually living in Minneapolis for the last number of years. And as I said, I always felt very, very welcome there. I think the only issue is, and I think it's normal, it's a bit like what's happening here is that, and it's one of the reasons why Trump would be elected, and I just want to expand on this point, is that when I first went there in 1998, the manufacturing was everywhere in the plant, but all of that was going from there, was coming over to Ireland. It was coming, it was going east. We'll say when I went back there, just say in 2008, just when Obama was coming in, just to put a kind of a bookend this. There was wind blowing through the place, and the manufacturing had evaporated. And if you drive, we'll say, through the small towns like I used to do, because I'm one of these people that I'm a bit of a tourist. I go to London for a couple of days, but then I want to see the real England, if you understand what I'm trying to say. I know.
And you drive once you leave Minneapolis, and Wisconsin is right next door. It's only a couple of miles, the border, and you drive over into Wisconsin. That's where the Mississippi in Stillwater. That's where the Mississippi rises, and derelict towns, derelict buildings, very bleak, and eventually that's going to take its toll in the ballot box, and people feel marginalised. And I never got the sense that it was they blame me or as an Irishman or as a that I was coming over there to take their jobs. but that they blame local government. And they have a kind of it's funny, they have a very liberal side to them again, which is important to understand. Like the two incumbents there, the two senators there at the moment are two Democratic senators. They elected Jesse Ventura, a wrestler, in 1998 as their governor. The comedian Al Franken was an independent senator there for a number of years. And again, they've had the heavy hitters like Hubert Humphrey and Walter Mondale. So it is a very, very significant state. And it is a state that, we'll say, it often comes up, not quite as a swing state, but with its 10 electoral votes, it has been targeted by the Republicans that if they just make one big push. And I think the problem is that the midterm elections are coming up this year, very, very important for Trump, And I think what they're trying to do, my own, wouldn't be very, very informed, but is that a lot of the Somalian community, the boat people, the immigrants that are there are I don't like using that word immigrants, but people who have relocated there, the vast majority of them all vote Democrat. And I think he's targeting those people, and that is what he's trying to do, and he's trying to fear these people out of there.
And what do you make of the protests that you're seeing and the kind of people? And as you say, it's extraordinarily cold there. I think, is it down at -30 or something like that? And people,
-20. Yeah.
People are still out protesting. So there's very strong feelings there about what's happening.
I'm not surprised at that. I mean, one of the issues, and I mean, look, it's all about is that they love their guns, right? Yeah. And it's not an offence to carry a gun in Minnesota.
Yes.
Once it's concealed. If you brandish it, then there's a problem. I mean, just before I got into the protest, I mean, I actually, there was no camera phones at the time in 1998, but I actually went out and I bought a camera, I took a picture of it, and I went into the site, and it's still there, but this is 1998, and one of the first signs I saw behind the reception was no guns allowed in this building.
Wow.
Now, I don't care where you go in Ireland, if that's one sign you're not going, not hot tobacco, no smoking here is about it,
Yeah.
But the protest is that, again, it's in the urban areas, and people just aren't, they'll go out and they'll protest. But the one thing about it is they're used to that kind of cold there. That's the only thing I will say, is that they know in July they're going to get that kind of weather. It's a bit like saying, will it rain in Ireland in November, December? Yeah, you know it will. And so the people who want to protest, Fran, they will go out and they will protest. And they want to protest peacefully, but the fact that they're carrying guns, it's not going to stand up in a court. And I mean, we had
because there's nothing unusual about it. Is that what you're saying to me,
That's the point I'm making. Yeah, there's nothing unusual. Now, I'm not saying it's like the Wild West, lads are going around with holsters and all that. I'm not suggesting that, but people could have a gun in their bag, and not everybody. Let's get real here. Not everybody, and the other. Two other points I want to make is that I think that, here in Ireland, we view America West Coast, East Coast. We look at Friends, or we look at, some film from California, and we think that's America. It's not. There's a huge chunk of states in between that, and right down the middle of the country, in the Bible Belt where it is. And I mean, Minnesota is largely a Lutheran state, and Lutheran religion is very I'm an atheist, but the Lutheran religion,
they're strict, aren't they?
It's very strict, and it's all about kindness and helping your fellow man. It really is, and it's not quite as we'd say rigid.
That's interesting. So you're saying that's playing into their I'm using a word incorrectly now, but their tolerance of immigration, I suppose, or their accepting of immigration. Oh, right. Okay, that's very interesting.
Yeah, it's about 80-something% Lutheran.
Right.
And in the Lutheran, if they'll always finish a sentence with "God bless you," and they actually mean it. They actually say, when they say "God bless you," they kind of hope that God does bless you. But one of the people who I became very friendly with, and people are free to look her up, was a chap called Kevin Moeller, and I'm still very, very, very friendly with him. And his wife is a state senator. Kelly Moeller. And if you remember there earlier, or last year to 2025, a senator and his wife were murdered.
I do indeed,
And their house was locked down for 3 or 4 days. And she's a Democrat, and she was a former state legislator. Met her on numerous occasions. If they come to Ireland, if Kevin comes here at work, we always go out for dinner and what have you. And when that happened, I texted her, make sure she was okay and all that. And then I was talking to Kevin just day before Christmas, and he said Kelly wasn't going to run again, that the country completely changed.
Wow.
And that she just felt that she had enough. And it wasn't safe for her or their children, and being locked down for 3 days, just not being allowed out of the house.
And do they blame Trump specifically?
Yes, yeah, they do. They do. Yeah. I mean, they actually fear for the world. They fear for their country. They fear for what happened. They're looking. I mean, these are people that would, Kevin and his wife Kelly would look at Europe. They would look at what's going on. I mean, and this isn't a criticism of American people. I mean, a lot of Americans don't have a passport because they don't need one. Yeah. They have everything. They have everything they want. They don't and the one thing that really drives me mad is that, look, my mother was born in New York. American people aren't stupid. This sort of view that we have, God, there must be some idiots to elect Donald Trump, but you have to ask yourself why.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the Democrats are largely to blame because the Democrats have failed them.
Thank you, Fran. The Democrats have failed them. Yeah. And, it comes down to the economy, stupid. Yeah. It always does. Yeah. And you see, as I said to somebody around the time Trump was elected, and build the wall. Well, I've been lucky enough to go down to Mexico and drive through Tijuana and down by San Diego. And I saw this was in around 1999, 2000, and looking at all the Mexicans waiting at the wall to get over it. Okay? Now, I'll give you a scenario. Say you're one of those people and you get over the wall and you get a job in Target or you get a job in McDonald's, and you're working for $5 an hour, and you are an illegal immigrant, or if you're Irish, you're undocumented. I don't know what the difference is, but anyway.
There isn't a difference, really, yeah.
Yeah, there isn't. But anyway, right, so just bear with me. So then you get your green card and you become legitimised, and you start earning $10 an hour and $12 an hour, and you make a life for yourself with your wife and maybe have a couple of kids, a couple of children. Well, the last thing you want is a guy coming over the wall, taking your job and doing that again for $5 an hour. So Trump went in and saw those people's vote, and Joe Biden, and it's well known, the Democrats didn't do a great job on immigration, and too many people came into the country. Now, I'm all for bringing people into the country because even in this country we need them. But the other thing is that the Democrats were always the party of the worker. And, they got that wrong. People were losing money. They didn't have money in their pocket. And who do you blame? You blame the guy 2 doors down. That's what Trump did. That's what always has happened with right-wing parties. We saw it in Germany in the 30s. 4 or 5 years after the Wall Street crash was the rise of Hitler and Nazism. Okay, it's taken a bit longer since 2008. But I will say this to you, Fran. I mean, it's very sad to see what's going on in Minnesota. It really, really is, and it's scary. And and I think Trump knows himself that they've gone too far. And the other thing before I go is that I would say this to you, that if you look at the ICE itself, I mean, these guys are not trained. They're not trained properly.
And that's the problem, isn't it? And one of the many problems indeed. Muiris, always a pleasure. Thank you for that insight. Most interesting. Thank you. Good morning to you, Muiris. That's my good friend Muiris Walsh there. We'll take a break. Back in just a moment.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. Now is the time to pick up your next van. From the award-winning Peugeot Partner van to the Expert and the load-lugging Boxer van. We have big vans, high-roof vans, long wheelbase vans. You'll find them all at Slattery's Garage Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Join the conversation in Tipperary. Contact us through Facebook, Twitter, or email tiptoday@tipfm.com.
Brian says Fran, Obama actually deported more people than Trump, and ICE is not a new force that was used by Obama. I must add, I don't support Trump or endorse his behaviour, but you must remember that the majority of these immigrants are a result of US sanctions and wars. The majority of immigrants in Ireland and Europe are also displaced by US activities, and if they attack Iran, many more immigrants will arrive, says Brian to us on 083 311 3311. And Leanne just as a figure for me, during his 2 terms in office, the Obama administration deported over 2.7 million people. So that's the figure that we have there. Now, memories and nostalgia, and it keeps rolling into us here over the last couple of weeks. And James joins me now. Good morning to you, James.
Morning, Fran. How are you?
You remember the 1970s, James, with a smile. Will you tell me why do you smile when you think about the 1970s?
Well, 1970 was very varied. I was born in 1964. So in the 70s, that's when I would have discovered music first. And there was so much going on in the 70s. You still had folk was still pretty big there, Simon Garfunkel, all that kind of stuff. You glam rock. It was the start of the punk era, disco.
Yeah, prog rock as well, progressive rock as well was huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, country is still big. Glenn Campbell was huge. Dolly Parton. I'm a huge Elvis fan, and a lot of Elvis' 70s stuff has often been overlooked. And he made some great records in the 70s as well. A lot of it kind of country based. Yeah,
and gospel stuff that he recorded in the latter end of his career. Yeah.
You had the Aloha from Hawaii in 1973, which was absolutely massive.
Oh, but the concert, was that 73? Was it? Yeah, what a marvelous.
That was 73. Absolutely. Yeah.
You're right. I never thought of that, James. It was a very eclectic music over those 10 years, all right, wasn't it? It was quite a mix.
Oh, unbelievable. And I mean, the Irish scene was big as well. I mean, that was the start of Bagatelle and, bands like that. U2 started just...
Is it true you had a crush on Gina of the Champions?
Still have. I still have it. And she's a lovely person. I've met her,
Yeah, she's a pure dote. And where would you have gone to see her?
I saw her up in Cashel in Brew. That was
Yeah,
I saw her there last year. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And I've seen her a few times around Waterford as well. And she's terrific, wonderful singer. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and of course I knew Geraldine as well. God rest him. He was fantastic.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant indeed. And were you a Bay City Rollers fan? I mean, did you wear the tartan or?
Oh, I didn't wear it. I was a fan of theirs, even though you couldn't admit it back then. That'd be like a young fella going to school now saying he liked Westlife or something like that, But they were absolutely massive.
Oh, huge, huge.
Yeah.
Do you know that Phil Coulter was the man behind them?
That's right. Yeah.
Produced their records and everything, which is...
He did.
And I'm delighted you mentioned Gilbert O'Sullivan, because it's a pity his career was destroyed by management, which is such a shame, because he was an incredible songwriter. Still is.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Actually, the first time I ever saw colour television was in Kennedy Park in Thurles, watching a concert of Gilbert O'Sullivan. that was the first time I saw colour television. Yeah.
And were you a Lizzie fan as well?
Yeah, I like Lizzie. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I liked all kinds of music. I still listen to the Mamas and the Papas and Seekers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so a mixture of the country and the folk stuff there that you like.
Yeah, you had everything. Then you disco then as well coming in the 70s.
Of course.
Saturday Night Fever and then you Grease and all that kind of stuff. And
are you surprised that the whole nostalgia conversation on the programme just exploded completely? We love to look back, don't we?
Particularly, we do, of course, And okay, sometimes you might look at it with rose-tinted glasses, with 70s and 80s and things like that, But it's. I'm still listening to that kind of music today.
Yeah, and do you think? There was some rubbish, I would imagine, in the 70s, as there is in any decade. But do you think overall was music better? Do you think?
It was because you see, you'd pure music. You know, there was what you heard on stage was the actual artist.
Yeah.
You know, and even if you think back, I know a lot of the listeners mightn't agree with this now, but Eurovision was massive in the 70s.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, things like that, and everybody tuned in to watch Eurovision.
Was that because it was real songs, you know, like
real songs, yeah, and you'd orchestras and things. And,
yeah, absolutely, and played live. Yeah. Everything was live, yeah.
Everything was played live, yeah. There's no dubbing or...
No, we used to send over poor old Noel Keelahan with his baton to conduct the orchestra. And,
yeah, I can remember Noel, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. That's amazing.
The lovely memories. Did you have an overall favourite artist of the 70s, do you think, James?
As I said, I'm a huge Elvis fan, so okay, Elvis is gone in 77. Allegedly, I think he's still alive.
Living in Tipperary, I would imagine, somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, he is, yeah. He's living up there in Holy Cross.
I'm just trying to think of the songs he recorded. Ooh, Temperature Rising. Well, what was the name of that? Yeah, he did. He recorded some very good songs in the 70s, all right. Even though I think, for me, the Elvis that I prefer was the Elvis of the 50s with the real rock and roll and stuff, you know. When it got a little bit cabaret and then those awful movies and stuff, I'm not too fan.
Yeah, absolutely. He's them themselves, bar a few of them, you know. But listen sometime to one of his songs called Trouble, as opposed to Trouble.
Yeah. I don't think I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah, and Mr. Songman.
Did he record that? Yeah.
He did, yeah. And they were actually the first records I ever bought.
Yeah.
In the 70s, yeah.
Yeah, what I liked about those 70s records from him was that there was a sense, and I know it was a fact, in fact, they were recorded as live, if you know what I mean. They weren't kind of manufactured. He had a band together in the studio, and that's how he recorded them. And that comes off the recordings, I think, which always gives a better dynamic, I feel, to a recording anyway.
Absolutely, yeah. The TCB band, wasn't it?
The Taking Care of Trouble band, wasn't it? Yeah.
Taking Care of Business, yeah.
You know, my head has gone today. I should remember all the musicians with him, and I can't. I don't know. I need help today, James. It's an age thing, I think. Look,
of course, you were there yourself. Of course, you know you were.
Only barely. Thanks, James. Listen, great to talk to you as always, James. Thanks for the lovely memories. Thank you.
Take care,
Bye-bye. You know, that's James looking back to the 1970s there. News and information's coming up.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24 111.
Thanks, Pat, and welcome back to the final hour of Tipp Today, 1800 938 007. Some disputes emerging about the numbers deported by Obama as opposed to Trump. There's some new figures now, and the argument there is that Obama deported 4.2 million and Trump 2 million, with Biden as 1.49 million. So make what you will of that. Delighted to be joined as usual now on a Tuesday even by John Lynch of Lynch Solicitors. Good morning to you, John.
Good morning.
Good to see you today. Rows about numbers deported and stuff, yeah.
You'd imagine you shouldn't be round about numbers. Surely that's a matter of fact of all things, no?
Well, I'm not sure about that, you see, because Obama, what he signed off on as opposed to who were deported at the time, all sorts of that sort of
funny, somebody said
stuff.
This to me over the weekend. They were talking about the whole ICE thing and the controversy, which, of course, now is subject to so much media coverage, as in whatever, you know. And I wasn't really watching it a huge amount, but one of the things that somebody was talking about was exactly that, i.e. that Trump isn't the worst, that Obama was worse, etc., etc. And it's interesting to try and drill down the figures. You know?
It's very, but you see, to get to the truth of it all,
correct,
is what the problem is. you're going to talk to us once again about resolutions, the legal resolution. Well, I'm delighted because normally it goes into March.
Yeah. I've decided I'm going to do a whistle-stop tour of it. I mean, we covered Will's enduring powers of attorney, I think, the last time.
Yes, we did.
And I mean, the other area, the starting area, and it has the same resolutions funneling every year, is the whole area of family law. Yeah. Because, funny, the trend is often very much the case that in January we get a lot of inquiries. And I think they've, I was going to say they have done kind of the stats on it, and the problem is that different times of the year can be quite stressful for families, and one of those times is around Christmas.
That families might break up or divorce or
lead to a point where they need to.
Would that be because they say, okay, we'll get through Christmas, we'll get ourselves into the new year, and then we'll look at that? Is it as pragmatic as that?
Well, I think it's more to do with the fact that Christmas is a time when families get together, and unfortunately, when families get together, it can sometimes show the differences that will emerge, and then come January, then it's kind of, look, need to do something about this. We can't have another Christmas like this, is kind of the general experience that I've had when I'm talking to people in January. Or alternatively, the other one is that people, as you say, leave it off until the new year. And they don't want to spoil Christmas, which is fair enough, and it's a very laudatory way of dealing with it. And the other thing, of course, is that people resolve things in the new year. So they say, well, I'm not going to have another year of this. So I presume there's a lot of, there'd be a lot of reasons, but those are the ones that I'd often come across.
But that thinking would reflect itself in the numbers that you would see in January and February.
It shows itself in the numbers. Same time as post-summer holidays. Same time, people are together for a prolonged period of time, and it shows, the fractures that are there, and then people decide, look, can't have another one of these, and so you do see kind of spikes. And
so if people are looking to separation,
well, I mean, the very first thing that and we've said it many a time, you and I have been talking about it, the very first thing is to try and do it, if you can at all, by agreement. I mean, there are going to be cases where it's going to be impossible, but the default position should be to try and reach some sort of agreement. And the primary reason in most cases why that's the paramount consideration is because at the end of the day, you separate over a period which is a very short period in your life, but the impact of that separation can follow on for years afterwards. So if people were able to stand back and look at it and say, okay, yes, it's traumatic, yes, it's difficult, but the repercussions of doing it the wrong way could be huge in terms of your relationship with your children and or your relationship with the separating the other party. And interestingly enough, an observation that was made to me by a German national who was at an event, and the event was what I would call a blended family event, i.e. that parties were separate, whatever. And he said to me, I'm surprised there's none of the former spouses here. And I said, why would you expect the former? He said, well, in Germany, if there's a family event like this, no matter what it is, you'll have former partners there. And I thought that was really interesting. A really interesting observation, because to a certain extent, I can see the logic of it, that after however many years, it should be possible to re-establish some sort of relationship with your ex, unless, as I say, you're in one of those scenarios where it's so acrimonious and so damaged that it isn't possible to do it. But as a default, so part and parcel of that, then I would say, is you may not be able to sit down and at the point of the separation to try and agree terms, if you like. That might be just a little bit too far to go. But certainly when somebody comes into me, I will always say, well, let's have a look at the situation here. Let's see what exactly are we dealing with. And I can give you some sort of a steer as to how I think a court will look at this, or how I think is in the best interests of all the parties, which is what the criteria the court uses. So the court's dictate is look to the interests of all of the parties within the scenario and see if you can do the best you can in the given circumstances. Gather the information, and on the basis of the information that you have, come up with a solution. Devoid of any partisan view one way or the other, if you know what I mean. That's the mandate that the courts has.
Right. And so would you look to mediation first?
You would.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I'd even look to trying to get the client into the position, into the mindset of looking for agreement rather than confrontation. So in other words, can you get, is there scope here to work something out? And if there is, and you mightn't even, in certain instances, you mightn't even have to go to mediation. I mean, mediation is a very broad term.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of solicitors mediate anyway, in the sense that you have a colleague that you deal with quite frequently. You're on the phone, you say, well, here's the scenario. Here's what we think will work. Okay, what do you think will work? Okay, what's your client saying to you? What's my client saying to you? Okay, is your client listening to you? Can they hear what you're saying? And are we in a position to reach an agreement, which ultimately would more than likely be reached anyway in a court scenario?
But John, you'd always end up with two solicitors, surely.
But it's right that one should, because you need independent, separate advice.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you have to have opposing. Now, this is one of my hobby horses, I suppose. Just because I'm acting for one side, as in one party, doesn't mean it's one side.
Yes, or that you're trying to screw the other side.
Exactly, or that you're trying to do a deal that's going to be totally detrimental to the other side. What you're trying to do is ensure that your client is properly represented, and that whatever the outcome is would be consistent with what a court might determine as the outcome. So that's your that would be my mandate looking at it. So that, to me, then I would say to a client, well, this is what I think will happen if you go to court. This is what you want, but what you want doesn't match what's going to happen. So the common one, for example, somebody will say to you, well, I contributed a huge amount to such and such. I financed this and I did whatever. So my contribution was hugely much more significant than the other party, because they were at home and I was earning all their money. And I would say, well, the court looks at it not in that. First of all, there are certain rules and guidelines the court will use, but by and large, 99 times out of 100, which is probably too high, in most cases what you have is not enough to go around. In certain instances, you will. Yeah. And if you do, that's a different scenario. But in most cases, people aren't going to be... I mean, it just makes logical sense if you think that if you split two into two separate units, it's going to cost more.
Of course it is.
By definition.
And then you add the children.
Correct. And then you add looking after the children. And then you look to the needs of the children and trying to do what you can. Even in most situations, couples are struggling with that, trying to do the best they can. Yeah. So then add in the complication that you're now got two separate households. So the reality of it is, taking into account additional contributions over the year doesn't work, because there isn't enough to go around. So from a pure common sense point of view, if you were to do that and apply that logic, you'd have very little left for the other party. So the reality of it is that the court in most situations will do a 50-50 exercise on it. Now, that's a very broad statement, but as a rule, as a default, and again, as I say, as a default position, that's your starting point.
And the family home there, John, is that included in the 50-50? So are we?
It can be, and the family home is included. You see, again, one of the criteria that the court applies is accommodation needs. So, and it's one of the... If you were to put a kind of a matrix of priority of rules or applicate a rule set, if you were to make a rules and go, well, what's rule number 1, rule number 2, rule number 3, one of the top rules, one of the ones at the top is accommodation needs. You can't have one out in the street and the other one living in the house. So you have to try and work that. And where the problems will arise then is where you have the family home and you have children, and the default position can often be, well, you don't have a choice but to sell it. And that's often, I've been in court where the judges look down at one of the parties and say, look, I'm sorry here, but we don't have a lot to go with here. If you get the house, she or he is out on it doesn't have an option. So you have to look to those options all the time. You have to look at accommodation. That doesn't mean, by the way, that I'm saying that in every case you're going to be dealing with a situation where you're going to be selling the family home. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you're going to be looking at all of it.
And it seems to me, from anecdotally, I hear that, you know, sometimes people come to an agreement, they'd live under the one roof.
Correct. Quite common, yeah. Not uncommon. In fact, I remember one of the cases that I had way back when, at the very early stages, this was literally, they put a wall down through the house, and I don't mean almost literally a wall down through the house. And he lived on one side of the wall and she lived on the other side of the wall. Yeah. And that was the practicalities of it, and that's what they were literally looking over the wall at each other, but they did that and lived like that for quite a number of years. It was like the other one that was very common at the very outset of my family law practice, was the whole idea that, you know, you couldn't have shared parenting. You know, you couldn't have a situation where the child could go from one household to another household. And I remember I was involved in a couple of very early cases where there was shared parenting, and it worked. A lot of what will work will depend on whether it's made to work or not. It'll be down
it's
to
interesting.
Like that.
There was a perception that, particularly years ago, that the man would come out worst out of any of these situations, really, you know, whether it was a court or even a mediation.
Very much so.
Is that still
it has changed somewhat.
Yeah.
With our people like our friend Bob Geldof. I remember he was a huge exponent of that, and a huge advertisement for it, because he actually took on minding the children, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I mean, there was, and again, you know, I like a lot of it, you know, broad generalizations. In my experience, once the parties, you know, there has been a huge shift. When I started family law first, however many years ago, I'm not going to say how many years ago, but even the pre-divorce period, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
I mean, at that stage, you were in a situation where you were being kind of told, you know, there was never any, you know, the one I got was you'd be pushing a boulder up a hill trying to argue that the father would be the primary carer, you know, and there was no look to the circumstances to see whether or not that should be the case or not. It was a
given.
It was a given.
Yeah.
All of that has certainly changed in the recent past with the whole. And I mean, if you think about it, not to be unfair to that period of time, it was very much the norm. I mean, it would be very much the exception.
Family law, of course, has evolved, John.
Hugely.
Yeah.
Hugely. And still evolving. And I remember it was maybe 15 years ago, I was at a conference involving Canadian judges and Texas judges, I think, and the Irish judges, and they were all sitting around talking about what needed to be done in the family law system in Ireland compared to these other jurisdictions, because these other jurisdictions were way ahead in terms of what they were talking about. Now, we've been talking about it, not unsurprisingly, for the last 15 or 20 years since the various reports were published about introducing mediation as a kind of you almost can go into a court scenario and the judge is a trained mediator. There's a mediation expert available to you. So the whole focus is on trying to put the resources and make the resources available to the family to support them. People who have never had no knowledge of what's involved in the law or the legal system, and the whole separate courtrooms, separate court system, trained judges, all of that is on the cards, as in the government of whatever the plan of government, whatever the term is that you have. It's all there, and the Act has been published and we're waiting for it. And then the question you're going to have is, will the resources follow? And if the resources don't follow, it ain't going to work. But I mean, this was however many years, it was at least 10 years ago. I remember sitting listening, wow, that'd be an incredibly, like, I mean, people are still standing around in courts, you know, in a big hall, like lost, waiting to get on their case, and then come down one week, and then they come down the following week, and then a month later they come back again. We're still dealing with, anyway, I better get off the horse.
Yeah, but it's very interesting to hear that. What else by way of resolution, John, should we be?
Well, the other one that you're looking at is should you have an agreement on regularising your position. So what I mean by that is there are a lot of people who are sole traders who possibly should consider, having a limited company. And the very simple reason you have a limited company is that there's limited liability there, and you're not personally exposed. It has the additional obligation that you have to do reports every year, but that to a certain extent is also beneficial because it means you got to keep your books in order.
Yes.
And so there is benefits in that. The other one, of course, is that there's a lot of people out there still that do set up companies and they're friends and everything is fine, etc., etc., etc. Something goes wrong, and the very first thing that you ask when they come into you on a dispute is there an agreement? Is there a shareholders agreement there? Because at the end of the day, a shareholders agreement is the way of sitting down with somebody and saying, okay, what do we want to happen? For example, if one of us wants to get out, what do you want to happen if one of us passes and dies? Where does my interest in this company go? Because who might or might not want somebody's family getting involved in a business that they really had no knowledge of? So there's where your shareholders agreement comes in. The other one then, of course, is people in partnership. If people are in a partnership, they should have partnership agreements. And then, there's a kind of a raft of agreements that you should always be looking at. So, and the big one, the big absolute one, that funny, bit like we were talking about wills, and you and I have often asked the question, why don't people make wills? And we've kind of tossed it out there a few times. But one of the things that certainly you'd have to ask as well is, if people are living together, why do they not have cohabitation agreements where they're living together for a long period of time and they're in a committed relationship? Now, if you're in a committed relationship, you're covered by the Cohabitation Act. But the question is, do you want to be covered by the Cohabitation Act? Are you happy with the terms of the Act? Would you not be better doing your own agreement? The answer is yes, you would. Because, like everything else, not everything is a little bit like our electrical goods. They're not made to last anymore. But the reality of it is that if you have a breakup, the time to talk about it is not when you're having it, but it's before you have it. And because then you're in a position to say, well, okay, people shy away from it, they shy away from it.
It's like the prenups as well.
Yeah,
it seems to be,
exactly. And the prenups are the same.
Yeah.
Having said that, I've got a couple of inquiries since the new year, why, I'm not sure, but again, the same thing. But if you look at a cohabitation agreement, prenup, yes, in anticipation, it's kind of hard when you're going down on one bended knee to be holding up, instead of the ring,
the ring
to be holding up the share, the prenup agreement. So maybe wait until you're do it maybe before you go down on the knee, and then maybe you go down the. But cohabitation agreements. And then the other thing that is very, very important, and we're back to will scenario here, where you have what I call a blended family, a will is critical, because what do you do if you have stepchildren? What do you do if you have your own children? How do you treat them? And how do you make sure that everything's okay? What do you want to do vis-a-vis your partner? And, whether it's blended or married blended or unmarried blended, it's the same thing. You should have a will and you should be dealing with it. And you should be sitting down. And you and I talked about this the last time. And I said to you, making a will, doing a shareholders agreement, doing a prenup agreement, any of these things, it's a process. It's not in, out, there you go, thank you very much, go down to Easton's and pull it off the shelf, fill in the blanks and away you go. It's a thought process as much as an act of executing a document. The document takes, if you think about it, one of the other things we could talk about is conveyancing and the whole land scenario. But the reality of it is that if you're buying a house, it takes time. Why? Because it's a process. Why is it a process? Because you have to go and check everything out to make sure everything's okay, and you also have to understand what you're doing. A will is exactly the same. Should take around the same time to do it. Now, move on to the other type of agreement that you should have, and the other one that causes trouble all the time. Two of them that comes to mind. One is if you're in a situation where you're buying a house with somebody else. People just go in, sign a deed, and they think that's fine. But it's not fine, because the amount of times, a couple of years later, one or other then comes back into you and goes, well, we're actually separating now, and there's no agreement. What happens about it? And I paid this and she paid that, and no, I didn't, and she's not agreeable to sell it, and whatever. You know,
make the agreement.
Make the agreement while you're able to have a discussion without a row. You know, I don't know. Maybe that depends.
No, but I mean, it's simple advice. But it's at the end of the day, you see the result of not doing that.
Exactly, and it is seeing the result of not doing it.
Yeah.
You know, and you kind of go, Genie Mac, the amount of people that come into you after the fact who said, I know you told me to do it, but it was going to be an extra €750 or whatever it was, and I didn't really want. And I said, well, look, it's like the person who came into me. I remember, and again, it comes to my mind as I'm talking about it. One of the things that people are always trying to do is save money, which is fair enough. But there's saving money and there's wasting money. You know, saving it, you can waste it by saving it.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, it reminds me of the client who came into me it was on a Tuesday morning, and we'd closed the sale on the Friday. And before we closed the sale, I said, have you surveyed the house? Have you done it? Have you got an engineer? Jesus, no, I don't need an engineer. Show me, what is your man? I have a friend who's a builder. And I said, look, you're investing a huge amount of money in this house. Why would you not get a professional to go in and have a look at it? No, I don't need it. Anyway, Tuesday morning they come in anyway. There's a big crack in the chimney.
Good God.
Huge crack in the chimney, which they only discovered when they lit the fire.
Wow.
Because suddenly smoke going all over the room. They go in, they check, and the flue is split all the way up. Now, I bit my tongue. I
told you so.
I bit my tongue because I didn't need to. I didn't need to do anything. They were always saying, Jesus, John, you told me. And I said, well, fair enough, but now what can we do? And of course, the very first thing is, can I sue? Can I sue the fellow who sold me the house? He never told me about the flue. I said, I'm sorry, you can't. It's caveat emptor. It's a principle of law. I told you about it at the time.
Caveat
emptor.
Emptor.
Beware.
That means what? Beware. Buyer beware.
Buyer beware. Yeah. Caveat emptor. Lovely Latin phrase. Caveat emptor.
Fascinating as usual, John. Thanks very much indeed for that.
I think I'm finished.
Are we done? Are we done our resolutions? Wow. All right, thanks, John. We'll take a break. Back with more.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. Now is the time to pick up your next van. From the award-winning Peugeot Partner van to the Expert and the load-lugging Boxer van. We have big vans, high-roof vans, long-wheelbase vans. You'll find them all at Slattery's Garage Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
I was reminiscing with James earlier on about the 1970s, and he said he had a crush on Gina. Well, PJ was on to say, Fran, stop talking about my Gina. She was my Tina Turner, it says. Well, Gina is a marvellous performer for sure. Brian says you also had singers like Bill Withers and Harry Chapin. Yeah, I loved Harry Chapin. Wonderful stories in music. Then Grace Jones. I was kind of iffy about Grace Jones. But Brian goes on to say David Bowie and all of the great rock bands. Unlimited variety of music back in the 70s. Something for everybody. A great musical decade in my opinion. So there you go. In 1969... the Irish Country Women's Association complained about drunken depravity at the fleadh in Cashel. Now, this was the Tipperary town's first time hosting the annual event, week-long festival of traditional music which combines competitions, sessions, parades, céilí, all organised by Comhaltas Ceoltóirí Éireann. Have a listen to this.
The annual Festival of Traditional Music is probably the country's richest festival, leaving up to £250,000 wherever it's held. But it must also be the most controversial, with its yearly inquest, condemnations of rowdiness and drunkenness, and the denials and justifications. But this year, from the Cashel Guild of the ICA, it's brought a pledge to do everything in its power to prevent a fleadh ever being held in this country again. A protest issued by its press officer, Mrs. Sheila Crow, cites filth on the streets, debauchery and depravity. The town, she says, was subjected to a horrifying experience.
The reason we protested so strongly was because it was such a dreadful event in this town. We had no conception that ever any such a thing would come to this town. We didn't know if such a thing could ever happen anywhere. It was really like a blitz, a 3-day blitz on our town. Our streets were always littered with drunks, broken bottles, food. People lay on the streets all day. At night, they all sat around our main street, drinking, and every bottle was broken as they finished drinking it. We have no doubt that it was a real debauch. There was debauchery and depravity.
You see, there is, again, another body of opinion altogether that holds that this is a very necessary Irish cultural festival.
Well, we think Irish culture or music should not be mentioned at all in this context. We think they are completely out of place. We couldn't see in this town, there was not anything that one would call anything Irish that we could be proud of, or cultural. Or there was certainly no music that we could hear in the streets. No one could hear any music but the noise of the breaking bottles and the howling of the crowd. So everyone in the town was terrified, really terrified. Most people in this town hardly slept during those 3 days. They were afraid their houses would be broken into, which happened in a couple of cases. And they were really too afraid. One doesn't sleep if one is afraid. With this mob roaming the streets, and they roamed the streets in groups, or whatever you call them, gangs.
But everybody's impression of every fleadh seems to be different, with some townspeople condemning them and traditional music enthusiasts ranking each better than the last. Mr. Lawrence O'Murrough, the national president of Comhaltas Ceoltóirí Éireann, the organisers, has heard it all before, and to him, Cashel was one of the best.
I don't deny for a moment that you have certain things happening at Fleadh Ceol that we wish weren't happening there, but I think this applies to all walks of life, dance halls and these pseudo-sophisticated events which perhaps won't get any publicity, and at other festivals as well. Therefore, the charges themselves must be considered. I don't know what these charges are at the moment.
But can I just tell you, charges of debauchery, depravity, drunks in the streets, filth in the streets, broken bottles, and a list of others.
Well, I tell you, the debauchery and the depravity I'd be inclined to leave to the clergy, because I believe that is their work. Any people who mention debauchery, I don't believe they even know the meaning of the word to start with, and depravity. When you ask these people to mention specific cases, they're not able to do it. The question of people being drunk on the streets, definitely we had people who were over-intoxicated, but they were in a very small minority. The question of broken bottles and litter on the streets, if you only have a gathering of 1,000 people or 2,000 people, even for a couple of hours together, they're going to throw glasses or what have you around, sweet papers and so on. But if you have a gathering of 80,000 people over 3 days at an event, certainly you're going to have an accumulation. But in fairness to Cashel Urban Council, this was all cleared inside of 2 hours.
Our good friend Tom Wood was a teenager at the time, and he joins me now. Tom, good morning. Good morning. It's brilliant to hear that, isn't it? It's a brilliant.
I was learning the tin whistle down the Christian Brothers, but I wasn't good enough to participate in the fleadh.
Can you remember it? Because I have a memory, even though I was only 7, Tom, but there on Dominic Street, I remember the crowds and the
yeah,
buzz,
well, when you think about it, Fran, it was 57 years ago, right?
Yeah.
The first All-Ireland fleadh, I believe, was held in 1951. So this was 1969. And, of course, the Ireland of that time and the Cashel of that time were completely different than what we have today. And I can, visualise Cashel back 57 years ago. First of all, you didn't have a bypass of the town, number one. The main Dublin-Cork Road was running down through Ladies Well, the main street and up O'Her Clock. You didn't have car parks where people could even park, and I can remember during that fleadh period, I mean, cars were parked on the old Dublin Road miles out, nearly as far as the Horse and Jockey. I think in some instances buses were sent out even to bring the people into town. So it was a completely different atmosphere at the time. And then, of course, Fran, as regards the fleadh itself, it was like two fleadh. You had all those people who had qualified through county fleadhs, the provincial fleadh, and then they got to the All-Ireland one in dancing and music and song and the Irish language. Over that period of the 3 days, all those
competitions then for those people were held locally, like in what was the Tipland Ballroom, the Town Hall, the Convent Hall up in Friar Street, even in places like the Holy Family Hall in Agers Lane. Every facility had to be used to cater for the competitions. And meanwhile then, as you saw on the film there, Michael Ryan's piece, I watched it a few times the last few days. In fact, the first person I saw in the beginning of it, with a great music session going on in the street, was what's his name? Jimmy Burke.
The great Jimmy Burke playing the accordion.
With
wonderful.
The accordion, and he's still playing the accordion today. It is wonderful to think about it. Yeah. But, you know, that was the Cashel of that time, and you had thousands of people then on the street, musicians and dancers, etc., came from all over the country and from abroad that wouldn't, Fran, have even been involved in the competitions that were going ahead in the other venues during the 3 days. So when you put all that into context, it was a totally different situation. Now, I was estimating, Fran, in the last few days that back at that time we had about 25 pubs here in Cashel, or drinking outlets here in Cashel, about 25 of them. Today we have about 9.
Wow.
But some of those, after the first few hours, actually didn't open their doors anymore over the weekend. And
why was that? Because it was so rowdy, was it? It was just too rowdy, Tom, was it?
It was just too rowdy. And the biggest issue, Fran, was, and people probably forget, during that particular week heading up to the fleadh, the Kilkenny Beer Festival was on.
Was it? Wow.
In Kilkenny. That first started in 1964. So it was said at the time that hundreds of lads and girls came over from Kilkenny from the beer festival over here to Cashel, a short distance, and stayed here. In fact, I was told by people over the last few days that they didn't just stay here for 3 days. Some of them stayed here for a whole week at the time. Now, I can recall, Fran, my father was chairman of the Urban District Council in 1968, okay?
Yes. Yeah.
And that year overlaps into 69. But I can remember going round town with my father, knocking on people's doors months in advance of the fleadh, asking if they would be prepared to keep people during the period of the fleadh itself. These would have been people participating in the competitions, or in particular the adjudicators that came from all over the country. And I can remember being in Dominic Street at a house where there was a little woman living. I think she was a widow woman, all dressed in black. Mary Ann Kerwin was her name.
Oh, I remember her well.
I can still picture her next to Paul and Mary Flynn's house there, next to that. And my father knew her well over the years, and she knew him. We went in and she made tea, and after about an hour or so, it was decided that she was going to take in 2 people for the fleadh, but she emphasised there had to be 2 women, not men, no men, 2 women. And she did take them. And even up in our house, I can remember over the weekend of the fleadh, an adjudicator, I think he came from County Cavan, he stayed in our house for that particular weekend. But there was a huge amount of work involved in the preparation and planning of the event itself. I can remember the Brothers' Field, the playing field below. It was a camping site for the fleadh. And I know that some of the lads in the more senior classes in the Brothers, their job was to manage the actual camping site itself. And I can also recall, as I'm sitting here even in the main street at the moment, the ICA themselves, they used the laneway there where the O'Connor family, Dr. O'Connor, lived next to the Bank of Ireland. There's a doorway there and there was a laneway, and they used that for tea and sandwiches over the period of the fleadh. Now, I'd say what happened really was they didn't sell too much tea or sandwiches because most of the lads on the street wanted bottles of Guinness and bottles of beer.
Yes.
So you had all that going on at the same time.
And did you know the Mrs. Crowe who spoke there?
I knew her. I did. I knew her to see her.
Did you?
Her husband Roger Crowe was teaching down in the technical school for a long number of years. A very well respected teacher in the technical school, and they lived on the terrace in Ladies Well.
Right.
Or just beyond the cinema. That's where they were living. But she made a wonderful in the film and in the in the recording.
I thought she was great. I thought she, and I love the accent. The accent was just
wonderful accent. and I mean, the one sentence there that you played, we will do everything in their power to prevent it from being held there again here in Cashel. And it wasn't ever held here again. And then the other wonderful piece from Ross himself,
yes.
That about the allegations of this sort of, the fleadh was always a success, but he said certain things happening at Fleadh that we wish weren't happening there. And that related to what was happening on the outside. My two aunts, Fran, were living here in the house that I'm in now. They didn't go out onto the street over that entire weekend.
Didn't? They're on the main street there, of course.
Outside the front door. Cantwell's pub was next door here. And Michael Tatton, who was working here in Cashel at the time, he was in the Cashel Palace. He actually reopened the bar in what was previously Corcoran's Hotel, where Super Value is today. You might remember Jackie Corcoran.
Jackie Corcoran was there in Connor, yeah.
Well, he actually reopened the bar for the Fleadh weekend and did very well out of that. So a lot of people opened up little separate places themselves. Some did very well, depending on what drinks they were actually selling.
I loved Ross's comment when somebody mentioned debauchery and he said he'd leave that to the church. He'd leave that.
I know. and as well, Fran, there's no mention in those days of drugs.
Yeah, good point.
It was drink.
Yes,
it was drink. But my two aunts were here, Fran. They didn't move out that entire weekend. And when they did eventually decide to go out on the Monday morning, when they went to the front door, when they went to open the front door, there was a whole heap. I saw them myself when I came down to the house. A whole heap of caps of porter bottles and beer bottles. They were opening them in the letterbox. They were putting the neck of the bottle into the letterbox, and the cap then would drop onto the floor in the hall.
Oh, wonderful. And was it as littered as what Mrs. Crowe said there? Was it really badly littered?
I can remember being around the streets, and there were so many people around you wouldn't even have seen the litter. It was only when people started to move away and the streets, started to be cleared. And as Laura said, the council then immediately set to work. Within hours, they would have had it all cleaned up. But it was just the event at the time. And as I said, the big thing at the time, I believe, was the Kilkenny Beer Festival as well. And so many had come here relating to that.
Yeah. And was it discussed at council level afterwards? I mean, the kind of objections, did that emerge in the council chamber?
Yeah, but no, there was no big issue about it, really. And it's worth noting, remember as well, that within a short time of that, Ross himself became chairman of Cashel Urban District Council.
Ah, right.
Right? My father was chairman in 68 and Ross was chairman in 69.
I didn't realise that. I didn't realise that.
So there was, people understood, and there was great respect, etc., etc. For
and he was national president at that point, wasn't he? Of Cultus.
He was the national president even back at that point. And I mean, that, when you think of it, still involved at the top today, which is amazing feature. There's another story, Fran, if you have a minute.
I have, of course, yes.
The Rock of Cashel, some people said at the time, the Rock was rocking. Because in those days, Fran, you might remember yourself, there was no gates locked in the passageways or anything. Yeah. They literally took over the Rock. And they slept there for days in the passageways and inside. And there was one woman living down the Rock Lane, and she had hens and chickens. And I always remember hearing the story that some fellas actually stole some of her hens and chickens and actually cooked them above in the Rock.
Oh, I shouldn't laugh, but that is so funny. It's brilliant.
It's easy laughing at it now, but I suppose for a lot of people like Sheila Crowe and people like that,
I know,
they would have been concerned and probably would have been afraid.
But is my memory sound, Tom, that I think the Rock Field was full of tents as well, wasn't it?
Oh, the Rock Field was full of them, and any space at all that you could get, Hoare Abbey, every place, because remember again, you didn't have the facilities, and as I said, only for local families, taking in people for the weekend, the adjudicators and those involved in the various competitions during the Fleadh, you couldn't run it otherwise. So preparation for that would have started about 18 months before the Fleadh itself. And as I said, that was the gist of it at the time. But definitely the crowds of people, and looking at that film, it's a brilliant piece of film.
Oh, it's brilliant.
you can see all the people sitting above. The Croke Memorial, as you can see, was above at the top of the town in those days, before it was knocked down. Do you remember that, Fran?
I do
and you
indeed.
can see the crowd, girls and fellas, all sitting around on the at the foot of the Croke Memorial with their bottles of beer and bottles of Guinness, and hear the music in the background. Like
the main memory that I have from it, Tom, and it's always stayed with me, is a man being arrested by two Gardaí and being marched down Dominic Street, and it's with me as if it was only yesterday. You know?
But it said in the part of the film or someplace that there was about 400 Gardaí supposed to have been around the area at the time, and according to Mrs. Crowe, there was 248 people needed first aid.
God almighty. Debauchery indeed, and some of the language around the reporting is fascinating. Hedonism.
Oh, it is.
Depravity.
I know. Yeah, but Mrs. Crowe herself, I mean, as you said, her accent alone, like, and the fact I can always remember, I think they closed the laneway before the fleadh was even half over because there was nobody interested in buying tea. If they had been selling bottles of Guinness and bottles of beer.
And where was that laneway again? Is that opposite where the supermarket is now? Opposite.
It's more where Mickey Buckley was living up the steps.
Oh yes, yeah. So
and there's a doorway there, a big doorway going into a covered laneway between that house and the Bank of Ireland, the former Bank of Ireland.
Right.
And that's where the O'Connor family lived there. There was a Dr. O'Connor who lived there.
And I'm sorry for laughing, but the brown bread wasn't appreciated, or the cups of tea.
No, not that much. But it was, as I said, it was two different events, basically. Yeah. Two different events. But then those people who were dancing and singing and playing beautiful music, like Jimmy Burke and all on the street, they were amazing in their own right. Yeah. But it was the fact that there was so many either lying around them or standing over them, that caused the bit of a problem.
Oh, for sure. I'm delighted to hear you mention Jimmy Burke with his beautiful San Marino accordion. Beautiful musician. Really lovely musician.
Yeah. And of course, as I said, we didn't have the All-Ireland fleadh ever afterwards in Cashel. I think they started the county fleadh here just again a few years ago. Yeah. And of course, the great event ever since then, of course, in relation to Ross and Colchis, the Brew Baroo itself opened, I think, in 1991. And I mean, where would you get a centre as good as?
Oh, sure, fantastic. And I mean, Ross and his lovely wife, I mean, they'd be instrumental in the evolution of Colchis over those years as well. Really fantastic.
Now, I can recall I was saying at the time, Fran, that every facility was used for the competitions because we had so many competitions over the few days. Even the school classrooms in some instances were used. And I'm not sure even if the courthouse itself was even used for some of the competitions, with the Holy Family Hall, which of course is gone now in Eagers Lane, and of course the Convent Hall, which is also gone. So in 57 years there's been a massive change nationally and locally, and a huge change in relation to what happens at the All-Ireland fleadh now.
I know, but looking back, you see, I know the danger of rose-tinted glasses, but there were great times. I remember the shows you used to do with Oliver in the town hall, upstairs there in the town hall, and they would be chock-a-block. I mean, just...
Yeah, they'd be packed up in the gallery and everything, you know. And there's one funny one. Oliver and myself, Fran, used to do a kind of a bit of a comedy, but I was never any good at learning lines, so it was always kind of ad-lib. But on this particular event anyway, the show was on for 3 nights. And you remember Patsy Lacey, the Lord of Mercy and Patsy, in the Rock Cinema. But Patsy attended anyway for the 3 nights. And we met him a few days after the show had ended, and he said, I was there for the 3 nights, he said, and he says, your sketch was different every one of the 3 nights. And it was because I could never remember the words, and we just filled in along the way, but people just loved it and enjoyed it. And there was a great atmosphere there. We used to put an out record player on the windowsill of the town hall in advance of the show being on and play, getting the attention of people. And as you said, the place would be packed, and those were the good old days.
Oh God, yeah. And you take people off on mystery tours then. I mean, it's great stuff happening.
Well, you see, Fran, you couldn't do it now because on my bus tours, Cashel tours, we had forums up the middle of the bus if there was people looking for seats.
Yes, I
remember years ago I had a bus tour to the Ring of Kerry. And on the Saturday evening, it was going on the Sunday. The bus was full already a week before, But there was a couple, a girl and a boy from Australia, and they'd been cycling around Ireland, and they were going back the next day on the Monday, and they knew they couldn't get down to the Ring of Kerry in that length of time. And they called to my mother in Ardwera to know if there was a receipt available on the bus. there wasn't, but of course she said, he'll fit you in anyway. And they put a tent up in our garden in Ardwara. They slept there that night. They had a wonderful day on the Ring of Kerry the next day, slept again in our garden on the Sunday night before they got their bicycles on the Monday and headed off to go back to Australia. And for years later, when they got married, they sent my father and mother lovely photographs. They sent lovely photos of their children when they were born. You know, all of that happened, and it just happened naturally.
Lovely, lovely memories. Tom, it's always such a pleasure. Thank you for your time, Tom. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Still laughing. Good luck.
Good morning to you, Tom. That's Tom there, all about the debauchery and depravity and hedonism in Cashel back in 1969. I'm still remembering Sheila Crow's accent there, where one would be frightened in one's bed, indeed, with all of that going on. We'll be back in just a moment.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tipp today on 1-800-938-007.
Oh, Leanne is with me. So you'll have to adopt that accent that Mrs. Crow has.
I don't think I could do it justice like she does. Yes. Matronly.
Matronly. I like that very much. Huge interest in that. If people want to hear that in its entirety, they can see it. It's a piece of video, isn't it?
Yeah, it's part of Newsbeat, I think it was at the time. Yeah. So the actual footage from the news recording is online. It's on YouTube, and if you look up just Cashel fleadh 1969, and you'll see the full, I think it's about 8-10 minutes of audio and visual.
Very good. And Tom was saying that the broadcaster there was Michael Ryan, who went on to have a great career in Nationwide, of course, for many, many years too. Tomorrow on the show, what have you got for us?
Oh, it's going to be a very busy show. We have a very interesting piece from columnist Mary McCarthy. So she's actually going to discuss, she wrote a piece in the Irish Times, an opinion piece, on why children under 16 should not be left unsupervised online.
Okay.
And why it's up to parents to act as almost a seatbelt and challenge their children and make sure that they're not just out of control online. We'll also have Deputy Matty McGrath. He'll be here in studio. We've the next instalment of Hidden Histories, which is going to tie in lovely to all of our nostalgia. And a Tipperary group has called on the government to ban victims' counselling notes from being used in sexual trials. So that's actually going to be voted on tomorrow in the Dáil. So later tomorrow.
Very interesting indeed. Are you still surprised at the amount of... So I'm just looking at the screens here following that chat with Tom. People love nostalgia.
It's lovely, and especially like those pieces where people remember it.
Yeah.
They're the great parts, like to actually remember that happening. And even if you look at the video on YouTube, you can see the debauchery. You can see the kissing and hugging and the swinging and the bottles being thrown. And when you think of it at that time, I can imagine why it was so...
Oh my God, yeah. Particularly to people, you know, like Mrs. Crow, you know, who had their little lives and, you know, everything was ordered and orderly and all that. And then this hit the town like a hurricane. But I didn't realise the other point, Tom, that there was a beer festival in Kilkenny, and they all came from the beer festival to the fleadh as well. It must have been mayhem, you know.
Mayhem, but I think if they saw like match days now,
right,
they'd have an absolute heart attack.
Do you think?
Oh, absolutely. If you see what goes on match days, it's nothing compared.
I don't go to the big games, you see.
Oh my God, it's crazy. It's absolutely madness. I got caught in the middle of it in Thurles last year. I was driving home from somewhere and I got caught for 2 hours. And even I was just looking around like, where are these people's parents? Like, somebody get some water. So I can only imagine if Mrs. Crow saw match day.
One would be very annoyed.
Very annoyed.
One would. All right, thanks for that, Leanne. Leanne produced today. Ali looks after content. Stephen has the Time Tunnel on the lunchtime show. We have more of the same tomorrow. Look after yourselves in the meantime. Bye-bye.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, puck on. See slatterysgarage.ie.